You are listening to How to Wreck a Train and Win a Mate, written by Deanne Leo, narrated by Jessica Lee. She destroyed his mother's gift. He destroyed her professional boundaries. Together, they're about to destroy a corporate secret. If they don't kill each other first. Magrita wasn't supposed to fall for Dominic. But the moment their wolves recognized each other, every rule she lived by shattered. Now she's lying to the family welcoming her as a daughter, falling for the man who'll hate her when he learns the truth, and risking everything to expose the danger that could destroy them both. Because some bonds can't be denied, some truths demand to be told, and some disasters are exactly what you need to find your way home. This is an original story written exclusively for you, the amazing audience of this channel. The only way to support more chaos, romance, and possums with wine opinions is to like, share, and subscribe. Your engagement keeps these heartfelt shifter romances with laughs and swoons coming. Want your story idea featured next? Drop it in the comments below. Deanne Leo reads every single one. Bonus content alert. There's a hilarious bonus chapter waiting for you, but only if you know where to find it. Subscribe to the Course of Roses collection and get everything in one place. All stories, all bonuses, zero hunting. Never miss a release or a bonus chapter again. Link in description and pinned in the first comment. Now let's begin the chaos. Chapter 1. The vintage bicycle hit another pothole, and Magrita's teeth clacked together hard enough to rattle her skull. Sweat trickled down her spine despite the cool country air, and the suppressant patch on her inner wrist itched like hell, always did when she was stressed. "I feel compelled to remind you," the possum Merlot's muffled voice emerged from her messenger bag, "that I explicitly advised against transporting a bicycle clearly designed for paved metropolitan surfaces onto what can only generously be described as a suggestion of a road." "You want to walk 3 hours?" Magrita gripped the handlebars tighter as the bike lurched over a root. Dust kicked up around her ankles, coating her jeans. "I shan't be walking anywhere." Merlot's pink nose emerged from the bag's opening, whiskers twitching with indignation. "You'll be carrying me in this wholly inadequate conveyance, as you require my expertise for this investigation. Wine, my dear, is my territory. I possess a Level 3 sommelier certification from the Court of Master Sommeliers, a diploma from the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, and you won't shut up about it, and a particularly refined palate that has been featured in 3 regional publications. 4. If one counts the blog incident, though I maintain that reviewer had no business critiquing my assessment of the 2019 Barossa Shiraz. The Heritage Railway Station appeared around the bend, all Victorian-era charm and freshly painted trim that gleamed in the afternoon sun. Magrita's heart did an embarrassing little skip. The scent of coal smoke hung faint in the air, mixing with eucalyptus and dust. "Oh no," Merlot's voice dropped to a funeral dirge. "I know that expression." "We have plenty of time." Magrita hopped off the bike, already pulling out her phone for photos. Her boots hit gravel with a satisfying crunch. "The steam train goes right into the valley. Saves me an hour on this death trap bicycle, and I actually get to ride a real steam train. This is precisely how disasters begin." She was already halfway to the platform, camera app open, when Merlot groaned from the bag. The ticket booth was empty except for a man in his 60s, wearing a conductor's uniform that had seen better decades. His nameplate read, "Bernard." The small office smelled like coffee grounds and old paper. "Afternoon?" Magrita approached the window, pressing her palms against the worn counter. "1 ticket to Steel Valley, please." Bernard didn't even look up from his newspaper. "Not running today." "What? But the website said, website's optimistic." He turned a page with deliberate slowness. "Need at least 5 passengers to justify firing her up. Got 1 customer. Well, 1.5 if I count the possum in your bag." "That's marsupial discrimination," Merlot muttered. "And I'm a brush-tail possum, thank you very much. Could I at least take some photos?" Magrita tried not to sound desperate. "I'm a huge train enthusiast." Bernard waved toward the platform without looking up. "Knock yourself out. Just don't touch anything." The steam locomotive was even more beautiful up close, all brass fittings and forest green paint, the kind of machine that belonged in a museum or a really good dream. Heat still radiated from the engine, and the metal gleamed where afternoon light caught polished surfaces. Magrita climbed aboard, inhaling the scent of coal dust and old leather seats, oil and brass polish. "This is inadvisable," Merlot warned from the bag. She ran her hand over the worn velvet seats, feeling decades of compression and wear beneath her fingertips, tested their springs, still had good bounce, snapped 17 photos, trying to capture the way light filtered through lace curtains in the windows, the ornate luggage racks overhead, the embroidered headrests. The afternoon sun slanted through the glass at that perfect golden angle, warm on her face. She could practically hear the whistle, see the countryside rolling past. "Do not," Merlot said, but she was already moving toward the driver's cabin. "Absolutely do not." The control panel was a symphony of levers and gauges, each one labeled in fading paint, brass warm under her hovering fingers. The whole cabin smelled like metal and coal and something indefinably old and important. Magrita reached out, fingertips tingling. "I am stating for the record that I vehemently oppose." Something scuttled across her foot. Small legs, too many of them, fast. Magrita shrieked and jumped, her elbow slamming into the largest lever with a bone-jarring impact. The train lurched forward. The sudden momentum threw her against the control panel, metal digging into her ribs. Oh, God. She grabbed for the lever, pushed it back. The train accelerated, pistons hissing. "No, no, no! Stop touching things!" Merlot's screech was operatic. She yanked another handle. The whistle blasted, deafening, vibrating through her entire skeleton. The train picked up speed, rocking on the tracks. Trees started blurring past the windows. Faster, faster. "The brake!" She lunged for what looked like a brake lever, her pulse hammering in her throat. "Where's the brake?" "I'm a sommelier, not a railway engineer." The door behind her burst open, hinges shrieking. A man stumbled through from the passenger car, tall, expensive suit now wrinkled, dark hair mussed, and the most startling golden eyes she'd ever seen. They were wide with what might have been shock or fury or both, and he smelled like money, expensive cologne, leather, something crisp and cedar-like that even her suppressant couldn't quite muffle. "Stop the train!" Magrita shouted at him. He stared at her. "I don't know how! You're not the conductor?" "I'm a passenger." His voice was sharp, cultured, with edges that could cut glass. "Then why are you just standing there?" "What would you like me to do? Throw myself under the wheels?" The train was definitely going faster now. The whole cabin shook. Trees blurred into a green smear past the windows. Wind whistled through gaps in the doorframe. "Help me find the brake!" Magrita grabbed for anything that might help, her hand closing around something in his grip, something large and detailed, and definitely not a brake lever. "Hey," he started. She yanked it from his hands and jammed it into the gap between two control panels, using it as a wedge against what she desperately hoped was the brake mechanism. The metal screamed. The object cracked. The train shuddered violently, throwing them both against the wall. The locomotive slowed with agonizing gradualness, brakes shrieking. Finally, mercifully, blessedly, it stopped. Silence fell, broken only by Merlot's theatrical panting and the hiss of escaping steam. Magrita's hands shook where they gripped the control panel. Sweat ran down her temples. The man looked down at his empty hands, then up at Magrita. His expression could have frozen wine mid-fermentation. "That," he said, voice deadly quiet, was a custom-made 1/12 scale model of this exact locomotive, commissioned 3 months ago from an artisan in Adelaide. Magrita followed his gaze to the control panel, where the miniature train jutted from the machinery at an angle that suggested it would never be unjutted. One tiny wheel still spun lazily. Paint had chipped off the smokestack. Her stomach dropped somewhere around her knees. Bernard appeared in the doorway, wheezing from his run, face red and shining with sweat. "Dom, I'm so sorry. I don't know how she—" He spotted the control panel. "Oh, dear God, is that the model?" "Was," the man, Dom, said. "Was the model." "Oh, dear." Bernard's face crumpled. "That was supposed to be a gift for your mother." They said it would take another 3 months to make a new one. Custom order, hand-painted, the works. Dom's jaw flexed. A muscle ticked near his temple. He looked at Magrita like she was something he'd scraped off his shoe, something particularly offensive that smelled bad, then turned and walked off the train without another word. His footsteps rang on metal stairs, then crunched on gravel, fading. "You," Bernard pointed at Magrita with a shaking finger, "are banned. From this station. For life." "I'm really sorry. Out!" Merlot poked his head fully out of the bag as Magrita stumbled back to her bicycle, legs unsteady. "I believe I mentioned this was inadvisable." "Not now, Mare." She grabbed the handlebars, still warm from her ride, and swung her leg over. The chain, stressed beyond its limits by the country road, chose that moment to snap with a decisive ping. Metal links scattered across gravel like broken teeth. Magrita stared at the broken chain dangling from the gears. She started walking, dragging the useless bicycle beside her. Each rotation of the wheel made a pathetic clicking sound against the broken chain. Dust rose around her boots. The messenger bag's strap dug into her shoulder. After 10 minutes, her calves were burning. After 20, sweat plastered her shirt to her back. The sun hung lower, turning the sky amber and orange, and she'd covered maybe half a mile. This wasn't going to work. She pulled out her phone and dialed the insurance company, thumb smudging the screen. Meridian Insurance Claims Division. The receptionist's voice was professionally bored. "Hi, this is Magrita Voss. I need to cancel the Steel Estate assignment. I've had transportation issues and I won't be able to—" "Hold, please." Elevator music assaulted her ears. Magrita shifted the bike, metal frame digging into her palm. "Ms. Voss?" Her supervisor's voice was ice. "I understand you're attempting to cancel the steel assignment. I've had some complications. The contract was logged this morning. If you fail to complete this assignment, I can guarantee you will never work another insurance investigation in this industry. Do I make myself clear?" Magrita's mouth went dry. "But I don't have—" "Figure it out, Ms. Voss." The line went dead. She stood there, phone still pressed to her ear, the clicking of the broken chain suddenly very loud. "Well," Merlot said delicately, "that sounded promising." "Shut up." She shoved the phone in her pocket and stuck out her thumb, angling herself toward the road. A car appeared in the distance, growing larger. She waved. It passed without slowing, kicking up dust that made her cough. "Statistically speaking," Merlot began, "hitchhiking accounts for approximately 4% of highway fatalities annually." Not helping. "And that's not even considering the criminal element. Abductions, robberies, the occasional dismemberment." Merlot, "I'm merely pointing out that this is precisely how I become an orphan and am forced to return to tree dwelling. Do you have any idea how challenging it is to maintain proper wine storage in a eucalyptus? The temperature fluctuations alone would devastate a 2015 Bordeaux." Another car appeared. Magrita waved more frantically. It swerved around her. "Perhaps we could call for—" "There's no one to call!" Her voice cracked. "No taxis, no Ubers, no friends within 300 kilometers. So unless you've got a better idea—" The sound of an engine made them both turn. A vehicle approached from behind, slowing. Not just any vehicle. A Jeep. The kind with chrome accents and paint so black it looked liquid. The kind that cost more than she'd earned in the last 2 years combined. Magrita's heart sank. She knew that Jeep. "Don't you dare!" Merlot hissed. "But the job, the threat. Never work in this industry again." She stuck out her thumb, thinking he wouldn't stop anyway. Rich guy in an expensive car wasn't going to pick up a dusty, bicycle-pushing hitchhiker who'd just destroyed his mother's gift. The Jeep pulled over. The window rolled down with an expensive whisper of machinery. Dom looked out at her, and if his expression at the train station had been cold, this was absolute zero. "Need a ride?" His tone suggested he'd rather offer her a root canal. Up close, the Jeep's interior gleamed with leather and dark wood accents. It smelled like cedar, and something underneath it that her suppressant couldn't quite mask, something that made her wolf stir and take notice. "You're going to Steel Valley?" Magrita tried to sound professional, not desperate. "I am." He drummed his fingers on the steering wheel. "Let me guess, train didn't work out?" "Something like that. And the bicycle clearly isn't working out either." His gaze flicked to the broken chain. "What brings you out here, besides a talent for vehicular destruction?" Think fast. Research trip for my dissertation. She scrambled for something that sounded academic. I'm studying the microbial composition of volcanic soil and its impact on terroir expression in cool climate viticulture. Dom's eyebrows rose. His expression shifted from Arctic to something that might have been amused interest. Grad student studying dirt microbes and traveling with a talking possum. That's a new one. I don't merely talk. Merlot's head emerged fully from the bag, bow tie slightly askew. I am Merlot Beauregard Pinot Rothschild III, certified Level 3 sommelier, holder of the WSET diploma with distinction, and published contributor to Wine Spectator Decanter and, regrettably, one Australian lifestyle blog that I shall not name due to editorial disagreements regarding oxidation. Dom stared at the possum, then at Magrita, then back at the possum. Your research assistant is a possum sommelier, he said slowly. With impeccable credentials, Merlot sniffed. Right. Dom's mouth twitched at one corner. I'm Dom, by the way, but you probably heard Bernard use my name while he was banning you from the railway for life. Magrita. She stuck out her hand, then realized he was still in the car and she was standing outside like an idiot. She dropped it. Margarita? His eyes gleamed. Interesting choice for someone studying soil microbes. Very festive. Heat crept up her neck. It's Magrita. Magrita. Like Margaret, except my mother was in labor for 18 hours, and the registrar had terrible handwriting. It's not a cocktail. Ah. He nodded seriously, but that corner of his mouth was still doing dangerous things. Unfortunate typo. Can I call you Mag? Please do, before someone tries to serve me with ice and salt. Noted. He glanced at her bicycle again. Look, I can give you a ride into the village. Where are you staying? I haven't exactly... She hasn't secured lodging yet, Merlot interrupted helpfully. Because someone insisted we could figure it out when we get there. Planning doesn't seem to be your strong suit, Dom observed. I usually have better luck with trains. Do you? His smile was sharp. Evidence suggests otherwise. Magrita bit back a retort. She needed this ride, and possibly his goodwill, since she was about to spend the next few days investigating his family's vineyard for insurance fraud. I'm sorry, she said, about the model train. Your mother's gift. That was... I really am sorry. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. The sharp edges softened just slightly. It was an accident. A catastrophic, possibly criminal accident, but an accident nonetheless. He sighed. Get in. I'll help you figure something out. Village has a B&B that probably has rooms. Magrita grabbed her bicycle and wrestled it into the back of the Jeep. It clattered against something that sounded expensive. She winced. When she opened the passenger door, the full force of that scent hit her again. Cedar and leather, and underneath it, something that made her suppressant work overtime. Something wild and warm and entirely too appealing. She climbed in, messenger bag on her lap. Merlot immediately poked his head out, pink nose twitching as he assessed the interior. Italian leather, he announced, full grain, vegetable tanned. I detect notes of, please don't critique my car like a wine, Dom said, pulling back onto the road. I critique everything like a wine. It's a compulsion born of refined sensibilities. It's a compulsion born of being insufferable, Magrita muttered. I heard that. My auditory capacity is excellent, much like my palate. If you keep critiquing things for no good reason, I'm leaving you at the next eucalyptus, and you can return to your tree-dwelling lifestyle. Merlot's nose disappeared back into the bag with an indignant sniff. Blessed silence followed. Dom glanced at Magrita, eyebrow raised. That actually worked? He hates the thought of living in trees again. Something about temperature control and wine storage. Smart woman. They drove in comfortable quiet, the road winding deeper into the valley. The sun hung low now, painting the ordered vineyard rows in shades of copper and gold. The air smelled like earth and grass and something sweet, maybe late-blooming flowers, maybe just the countryside settling into evening. The village appeared around a bend, a handful of heritage buildings clustered along a main street that probably hadn't changed much in 50 years. Warm light spilled from a pub's windows. A general store with faded awnings sat next to what looked like an antique shop. And at the end of the street, A two-story Victorian house with a wraparound porch and a hand-painted sign, Chen's Valley B&B. Flower boxes overflowed with geraniums beneath each window, string lights draped across the porch railing. Not yet lit, but promising charm once darkness fell. A rocking chair sat beside the front door, and lace curtains fluttered in the upstairs windows. Dom pulled up to the curb, engine purring to a stop. "Here you go," he said. "Mrs. Chen's lovely. Tell her I sent you. She might knock a few dollars off the rate." Magrita opened the door, then paused. Across the street, wedged between the general store and a closed bakery, sat a small shop with a wooden sign. Mountain Heritage Crafts. Through the window she could see shelves of handmade goods, pottery, woodwork, woven baskets. And in the front display, catching the last rays of sunset, was a collection of miniature wooden trains. Her stomach twisted. An idea formed, probably stupid, definitely impulsive. "Can you come back in an hour?" The words tumbled out before she could stop them. "To the B&B. I have something. I want to make up for the broken gift." Dom followed her gaze to the craft shop. Something flickered across his face. "You don't have to. I know." Magrita grabbed her messenger bag, already moving toward the Jeep's trunk for her bicycle. "But I want to. Please, 1 hour." He studied her for a long moment, golden eyes unreadable in the fading light. Then his mouth curved. Not the sharp, defensive smile from before, but something softer. 1 hour, he agreed. "I'll be here." That smile did something catastrophic to Magrita's stomach, a swooping, flipping sensation, like missing a step in the dark. Her wolf, even under the suppressant's chemical dampening, released a low, rumbling growl that had nothing to do with threat and everything to do with want. "Great." Her voice came out slightly strangled. "See you then." She yanked her bicycle free, the broken chain rattling accusingly, and watched the Jeep pull away down the darkening street. From inside the messenger bag, Merlot's muffled voice emerged. "I'm saying nothing. Good. Absolutely nothing about the physiological response you just experienced. Or the fact that your wolf is currently attempting to override a prescription-strength suppressant in order to, if you finish that sentence, you're sleeping in the eucalyptus tonight." The nose disappeared again. Magrita shouldered her bag, abandoned the useless bicycle against the B&B's porch railing, and headed toward the craft shop. Chapter 2. The bell chimed overhead as Magrita pushed open the door to Mountain Heritage Crafts. The shop smelled like beeswax and sawdust, with undertones of lavender from sachets hanging near the window. Afternoon light filtered through handmade lace curtains, catching dust motes that drifted between shelves packed with pottery, woven baskets, and carved wooden figures. "Be right with you, love," a voice called from somewhere in the back. Magrita moved toward the display of miniature trains she'd spotted from the street. Up close, they were nothing like Dom's destroyed gift. Simple pine construction, painted in primary colors that screamed craft fair rather than artisan commission. The kind of thing you'd give a 5-year-old, not a grown man's mother. Her stomach sank. This was hopeless. "Looking for something special?" An elderly woman emerged from the back room, wiping clay-dusty hands on her apron. Her name tag read, Martha. "Those trains." Magrita gestured at the display, trying not to sound as desperate as she felt. "Do you have more? Different pieces?" "Oh, those are Robbie's work. Local lad. Does lovely pieces." Martha pulled out a box from beneath the display, hinges creaking. "Got engines, carriages, stations, little people. He carves them all by hand." Magrita sorted through the box, wood smooth and warm under her fingers. Each piece was simple but well made, joints carefully fitted, details surprisingly intricate for something so small. Separately, they looked like children's toys. But together, an idea sparked. She started arranging pieces on the counter. Engine first, then 3 carriages in a line. A small station building with a pitched roof. A platform with tiny carved passengers, their faces barely detailed but somehow still expressive. Trees, a signal post, a water tower. "That's quite the collection," Martha said, leaning over the counter with interest. "Do you have a display board? Something flat I could mount these on? Got some nice pine boards in the back." Martha's eyes gleamed with the enthusiasm of someone who recognized a fellow crafter. Could even route the edges, make it proper fancy. Give you the glue and some tiny nails, too, if you want to fix them permanent-like. 20 minutes later, Magrita's fingers ached from positioning tiny buildings, and her credit card was considerably lighter. But the assembled scene on the routed board actually looked good, really good. A complete heritage railway station in miniature, each piece fitted together like a tiny world frozen in time. From inside the messenger bag hooked over the chair, Merlot's whiskers emerged. His pink nose twitched as he examined the work. "I'm grudgingly impressed," he announced. "It has a certain rustic charm, like a bold country wine, unpretentious but honest in its expression. The composition displays surprising sophistication." "High praise from you," Magrita muttered, pulling out her credit card. "Don't let it go to your head," I said grudgingly. Martha wrapped the board carefully in brown paper and twine, her movements practiced and sure. "This for someone local?" "It's a gift." Magrita hesitated, then decided to fish for information. "Actually, I'm also looking for wine. As a gift. I heard the Steele family's wine is famous in this region, but I want to make sure I get the story straight before I buy it for someone important who actually knows wine." "The story?" Martha's hands paused in their wrapping. "About the wine, the estate, the people who make it." Magrita kept her voice casual. So I don't sound like an idiot when I'm giving it as a gift." The woman's face lit up like sunrise over the valley. "Oh, the Steeles. Lovely people, just lovely. Elena, Mrs. Steele, she's been coming to my pottery classes for years. Sweetest woman you'll ever meet, and an absolute natural with clay. And they've done so much for the village." She tied the twine with practiced efficiency. Donated the new playground equipment, helped fund the school library, always the first to volunteer when anyone needs help. "They sound wonderful," Magrita said, and meant it. The guilt in her stomach twisted tighter. She was here to investigate these people for fraud. "Salt of the earth," Martha continued, sliding the wrapped package across the counter. "Their vineyard employs half the town during harvest. Good wages, too. None of that exploitation you hear about at the bigger operations. And that youngest son of theirs, Pete, he organized the youth sports league. Got the kids off their phones and onto the pitch." She lowered her voice, glancing toward the empty shop, as if someone might overhear. "We haven't seen Mr. Steele out and about in the village lately. Rumor is he's unwell. Heart, they say." Magrita's hands tightened on the package, brown paper crinkling under her fingers. "I'm sorry to hear that." "We all are, dear. Marcus Steele is a good man. Bit stern, maybe. Old school, but fair. The valley won't be the same without him running that vineyard." Martha rang up the purchase, the old register dinging. "You staying in town? Doing research or something?" "Something like that." Magrita handed over her card before Martha could ask more questions. "Thank you for your help and for the story." "Any time, love. Tell whoever's getting that wine they're drinking something special. That volcanic soil makes all the difference." The bell chimed again as she stepped into the cooling evening air. The sun had dropped behind the hills, leaving the sky streaked with purple and orange like a bruise. Shadows stretched long across the street, and lights were beginning to flicker on in shop windows. Chen's Valley B&B was exactly as charming as Dom had promised. A Victorian house with a wraparound porch, flower boxes overflowing with late-season blooms, and lace curtains in every window. Mrs. Chen was indeed lovely, a tiny woman with silver hair and a smile that crinkled her whole face. And yes, she did knock off $20 when Magrita mentioned Dom's name. "Such a good boy," Mrs. Chen said, leading Magrita up creaking stairs. "Always sends his mother flowers for her birthday. Doesn't visit as much as he should, but then, that's young people these days." The room was perfect. Floral wallpaper that should have been hideous but somehow wasn't. A bed with a quilted coverlet, and a window overlooking the vineyard-covered hills. The last rays of sunset caught the ordered rows of vines, turning them gold and green in shadow. The messenger bag hit the bed. Merlot emerged immediately, stretching his legs and adjusting his bow tie with small, precise movements. "Before you get comfortable," Magrita said, pulling a wine bottle from her larger duffel. "Work time." She'd purchased it at the general store on the walk back. A 2019 Steele Estate Pinot Noir. Same variety as the contaminated 2020 vintage they were here to investigate. Research. Definitely research. Merlot's eyes gleamed with the fervor of a true believer approaching a religious experience. Now we're talking. She poured a small amount into the room's coffee mug. Not ideal. Merlot would complain for hours about improper glassware, but she'd forgotten to pack proper wine glasses. Merlot approached the wine like a surgeon approaching a delicate operation, nose twitching, whiskers a quiver. He inhaled deeply, paused, closed his eyes, inhaled again, deeper this time. "Well?" Magrita asked when the silence stretched too long. "Extraordinary." Merlot's voice was reverent, barely above a whisper. "Complex fruit structure. Blackberry, black cherry, something almost floral. Violet, perhaps, but underneath." He opened his eyes, and they were bright with genuine awe. "That volcanic soil, you can taste it. Mineral, almost smoky, like standing near a fire made of dark stones. This is what terroir means. This is what they're protecting." "And the 2020? Magrita asked quietly. "The contaminated vintage? If the contamination is real, they've lost something irreplaceable." He looked at her, suddenly serious. "This isn't mass-produced swill. This is art. 50 years of vines, volcanic soil that took millennia to form, knowledge passed down through generations. You can't fake this. You can't buy it. You can only destroy it." The weight of that settled over the room. "We need to visit the vineyard," Merlot said, breaking the silence. "Tomorrow. Examine the soil, the production process, the barrel room. It's all in the soil and the process. Everything tells a story if you know how to read it." "Tomorrow," Magrita promised. "First thing." "Do we have time?" Merlot's whiskers twitched with barely suppressed amusement. "Or will you be too busy crafting gifts for wolves who make your wolf purr under suppressants that are clearly failing their primary function?" Heat crept up Magrita's neck. "That's not—" "I have a nose, darling. One of the finest noses in the Southern Hemisphere, I might add. I know exactly what your pheromones are doing right now, suppressant or not. You're producing enough attraction markers to, if you don't shut up, I'm finding the nearest eucalyptus and you can spend the night practicing your temperature control complaints." Merlot mimed zipping his mouth shut, then turned it into a locking motion, then threw away an invisible key. But his eyes danced with knowing amusement. Magrita checked her phone. 58 minutes had passed since Dom had dropped her off. She grabbed the wrapped package, ran a brush through her dusty hair, still gritty from the road, and tried not to think about why her hands were shaking slightly. Professional. She was here professionally. This was just a stranger who needed help. Nothing more. Her wolf laughed at her. The doorbell at the B&B chimed precisely 1 hour after they'd parted. Magrita heard Mrs. Chen's cheerful greeting from downstairs, then the low rumble of Dom's voice in response, deeper than she remembered, rougher around the edges. She took the stairs carefully, the wrapped package awkward in her arms, brown paper crinkling with each step. Dom stood in the foyer, one hand braced against the doorframe, like he needed the support. But he was different now, fundamentally different from the man who'd driven away an hour ago. The amused tolerance had vanished. His jaw was tight enough to crack teeth, shoulders rigid. Something stormy and dark and barely contained had settled in his golden eyes. "Hi." Magrita held out the package, suddenly uncertain. "I know it's not the same as what I broke, but—" He took it without a word, fingers brushing hers briefly. The touch sent sparks up her arm that her suppressant couldn't quite muffle, heat that traveled to her shoulder and made her wolf whine. He unwrapped it slowly, methodically, like each fold of paper required concentration. Stared at the miniature railway station for a long moment. His jaw worked. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or pain, or something too complicated to name. "Thanks," he said finally. The word was flat, empty of the warmth she'd heard earlier. Hollow. "Are you going to give it to your mother?" The question came out smaller than she'd intended. He looked up at her, and the expression there made her chest physically ache. Raw grief barely contained. Exhaustion. Fear. "I'm not sure." A pause. He looked back down at the miniature station. "Yes, she'll like it." But his voice carried no conviction, only a bone-deep weariness that seemed to age him 10 years in the B&B's soft lighting. "What's wrong?" Magrita descended the last 2 stairs, close enough now to smell that cedar scent again. Underneath it something sharper. Stress, grief, barely controlled panic. Close enough to see the tension in his shoulders, the way his knuckles were white where he gripped the board's edge. "I come back for family gatherings every 3 months." He set the package down carefully on Mrs. Chen's entry table, like it might break, like everything might break. "Routine weekend visits, except this one isn't routine. My father—" His voice caught, cracked down the middle. "His heart condition. It's worse. Much worse than they told me on the phone." "I'm sorry." The words felt inadequate, useless. He might not have much time. Dom's hand scraped through his hair, messing the careful styling, leaving it standing up in dark spikes. "Weeks, maybe a month. The doctors aren't sure." He stopped, jaw working, fighting for control that was clearly slipping. "Is there anything I can do?" Magrita asked softly. "No." He turned toward the door, movements stiff. "I should go. Thanks for the gift." "It's thoughtful. She'll love it." His hand was on the doorknob, brass gleaming in the lamplight, when he stopped, shoulders rising and falling with a deep breath that sounded painful. "Actually," he said, not turning around. "Yes, there's something. If you wouldn't mind." "Anything." He turned then, and the storm in his eyes had shifted to something more desperate. Something almost frightening in its intensity. "My father always wanted me to settle down, find a mate, take over the family business instead of running off to the city to play corporate wolf." His laugh was bitter, sharp enough to draw blood. "Tonight, the whole family's gathering at the estate. Extended relatives, family friends, everyone who matters. And all he's going to see is his failure of a son who abandoned him when he needed me most." Magrita's pulse kicked up. She knew exactly where this was going. "I want to introduce you as my mate," Dom said, words tumbling faster now, desperate. "Just for tonight, for the gathering. It would make him happy, give him some peace, thinking I'm finally getting my life together, that I'm not completely lost." He met her eyes. "I know it's crazy. We barely know each other. I destroyed your bike, you destroyed my mother's gift. We've known each other for approximately 3 hours. But later, when we're back in the city, we can tell everyone it didn't work out. Break up, distance, whatever. Just for tonight, just this one night, I want my father to think his oldest son isn't a complete disappointment." Magrita's wolf rose up, pressing against the suppressant like a physical force, howling yes, yes, yes in a way that had nothing to do with helping and everything to do with claiming in mine. She pushed it down, thought about the investigation, the insurance claim, the massive conflict of interest this might represent. But this was just one night. Tomorrow she'd be back to work. Back to being professional investigator Magrita Voss, here to examine contaminated wine and file reports. Tonight could be something else, something that helped someone who clearly needed it. "Okay," she said. "Yes, I'll do it." Relief flooded his expression like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. His shoulders dropped. The tension in his jaw eased fractionally. "I'll pay you," he said quickly. "Whatever you need. I know this is asking a lot. Probably insane, definitely insane. Don't!" She held up a hand. "We can figure out money later. Right now you need help. I can help, that's enough." Something in his expression softened, warmed. "Thank you. Seriously, I don't thank you." "When do I need to be ready?" "Dinner's at 7. I'll pick you up at 6:30. We can coordinate our story on the drive over." He paused at the door, hand on the frame. "Actually, do you have something to wear for a family dinner?" Magrita thought of her duffel bag upstairs containing 3 pairs of jeans, work boots, 2 sports bras, and exactly 1 clean t-shirt that said, "Trust me, I'm a professional," in faded letters. "Define something," she said. Dom's mouth curved. Not quite a smile, but close. The first hint of warmth she'd seen since he'd walked back in. "That's what I thought. Go to any store you want in the village. Pick up anything you like, dress, shoes, whatever you need. All you have to tell them is your name." He stepped closer, and her wolf damn near howled. His scent wrapped around her, cedar and leather, and underneath it something wild that her suppressant was losing the battle against. "Magrita," he said, voice dropping lower. Not Margarita. I got it. He grinned, a real grin this time, quick and devastating, and her stomach did a complete somersault, possibly a triple somersault. Her wolf was doing backflips. He opened the door, cool evening air rushing in, carrying the scent of eucalyptus and earth. 6:30. I'll be here. Then he was gone, the Jeep's engine rumbling to life outside, gravel crunching under expensive tires. Magrita stood in the foyer, her wolf doing victory laps inside her chest, and tried to figure out how she'd gone from insurance investigator to fake mate in less than 2 hours. "This is a disaster," she said to the empty room. From upstairs, Merlot's voice drifted down, theatrical and doom-laden. "I told you." Notes of catastrophe, undertones of profound regret, finish of absolute chaos. "Not helping, Mare." "I also detect hints of romantic inevitability and a subtle bouquet of lies that will definitely explode in your face, possibly literally, with witnesses." Magrita climbed the stairs, already calculating how badly this could go wrong. Very badly, spectacularly badly, catastrophically, career-endingly badly. But Dom's father was dying, and he'd looked at her with such desperate hope, and her wolf was still howling yes, despite every logical reason to say no. She had exactly 2 hours to find a dress, get her story straight, and figure out how to convince an entire family of strangers that she was their prodigal son's mate, while having absolutely no idea who these people actually were or where they even lived. Easy, she told herself, pulling open her duffel bag. People do this all the time. Fake dating is practically a genre. "In romance novels," Merlot called from where he was hanging upside down from the curtain rod, examining the view. "This is real life, where actions have consequences and lies compound exponentially." "Thank you, Professor Pessimism. I prefer realist sommelier." He swung himself upright. "Now go buy a dress. Try not to accidentally burn down the boutique or somehow flood it with wine. Given your track record today, I'd say both are distinct possibilities." Magrita grabbed her wallet and headed back downstairs, her wolf still doing pleased circles inside her chest, her suppressant clearly giving up the fight. This was definitely, absolutely, catastrophically a terrible idea. She was going to do it anyway, and somewhere in the back of her mind, a little voice whispered that she still didn't know where exactly his family estate was. Didn't know anything except that he smelled like cedar and looked at her like she might be the answer to something. Tomorrow she'd worry about details. Tonight she had a family to deceive and a dying man to comfort. What could possibly go wrong? Chapter 3. The boutique was called Lavender and Lace, which should have been Magrita's first warning. "I detect notes of desperation," Merlot announced from inside her messenger bag as they pushed through the door. A bell tinkled overhead, delicate, feminine, entirely wrong for someone who spent most of her time crawling through bushes with a camera. With undertones of impending fashion disaster. "One more word and you're going back to the B&B, Magrita muttered. The owner, a woman in her 40s with perfect hair and a dress that probably cost more than Magrita's rent, looked up from her phone. "Welcome to—" "Oh, you must be Magrita. How did you—" Dom called ahead. The woman's smile was bright enough to cause retinal damage. "Said you needed something special for dinner at the estate. I'm Claire. Let's get you sorted." 20 minutes later, Magrita stood in front of a 3-way mirror wearing what Claire called a classic wrap dress in forest green, and what Magrita called fabric torture device. "It's too tight," she said, tugging at the neckline. "It's fitted," Claire corrected. "There's a difference." "The viscosity is all wrong." Merlot's voice emerged from the bag Claire had kindly placed on a chair. "Too clingy, like an over-oaked Chardonnay, trying too hard to make an impression." Claire blinked. "Did your possum just—" "He critiques everything like wine," Magrita said. "Ignore him." "I will not be ignored. That dress has the structural integrity of a poorly cellared Beaujolais. One wrong move and— "So help me. Try the blue one," he suggested. "It has better drape, more, fluid, like a well-balanced Riesling." 45 minutes and 12 wine reviews later, Magrita stood in a deep blue dress that somehow didn't make her want to claw her way out of her own skin. Simple cut, hit just above the knee, sleeves that actually covered her shoulders. She could move in it. She could run in it if necessary, which, given her day so far, seemed likely. "Perfect," Claire declared, adding strappy sandals that Magrita immediately hated. "You look stunning." "I look like I'm trying too hard." "You look like someone Dom would bring home," Claire said, and something in her tone made Magrita's stomach flip. He deserves someone nice, after everything with his father. Right. His father. Magrita changed quickly, not meeting Claire's eyes. She paid. Well, Dom paid. Apparently his credit was good everywhere in this village, and stepped back into the cooling evening with a garment bag, a shoebox, and a possum who wouldn't stop critiquing her choices. "We should head back," she said, checking her phone. 5:15, plenty of time to— Absolutely not. Merlot's nose emerged from the bag, twitching violently. "Do you smell that?" Magrita inhaled. Soil, earth, something mineral and rich. "The vineyard," Merlot breathed reverently. "We're close to one, very close. I can smell the volcanic ash, the minerality. This is our chance." "Our chance to what? We're supposed to investigate the Steele estate tomorrow." "This is a Steele estate vineyard." Merlot pointed with one small paw toward a sign barely visible through the trees. "See? Steele Estate Vineyards, North Plot. We're literally standing at the edge of their property." Magrita looked at the sign, looked at her phone, looked at her new dress, still in its garment bag. "We have an hour," Merlot said, voice taking on a wheedling quality. "1 hour to collect soil samples, examine the vines, get preliminary data. It's perfect. No one's here. The harvest crew has gone home, just us and the terroir." "I'm wearing a dress. You have boots in your bag. Wear those." "That'll look ridiculous. More ridiculous than showing up to investigate a vineyard tomorrow having done zero preliminary reconnaissance." He had a point. Damn him, he had a point. 10 minutes later, Magrita stood at the far corner of the vineyard, wearing her new blue dress and hiking boots, holding her garment bag and feeling absolutely insane. "This is professional," she told herself. "This is efficient time management." "This is hilarious," Merlot corrected, already digging in the soil between vine rows. "But effective. Oh, the structure of this soil. Magnificent. Hand me the sample containers." She did. The sun hung low now, painting everything amber and shadow. The vines stretched in neat rows, heavy with clusters of grapes that looked almost black in the fading light. The air smelled like earth and fruit and something indefinably wild. Merlot worked with the focused intensity of someone conducting surgery. He sniffed soil, examined roots, made notes in his tiny journal using a pencil that looked like a toothpick in his paws. "The volcanic ash content is extraordinary," he muttered. "The pH balance, the drainage, the mineral composition, this explains everything about the 2019 vintage. No wonder it was so barking. Not just barking. Barking." Magrita's head snapped up. 2 massive dogs, German shepherds from the look of them, charged through the vineyard rows, teeth bared, moving with the deadly purpose of trained guard animals. "Run!" Merlot shrieked, abandoning his samples. Magrita grabbed him and bolted, boots pounding on volcanic soil, dress hiked up to her thighs. The dogs were gaining. She could hear their paws hitting earth, their panting, the occasional snarl. "Shift!" Merlot screamed in her ear. "Take off the suppressant and shift." Her hand went to her wrist, to the bracelet that kept her wolf contained. She could shift, scare these dogs off in seconds. "The dress!" Merlot clutched her shoulder. "It'll shred when you shift. That's a $3,000 dress Dom paid for." "So? So you'll show up naked to meet his dying father." Point taken. Still running, Magrita yanked the dress over her head in one fluid motion, grabbed the suppressant bracelet and pulled. It snapped free. Then she kicked off her boots, standing there in her sports bra and underwear, dress clutched in one hand, Merlot in the other. The shift hit like lightning. Her wolf surged forward. Gray fur, sharp teeth, every instinct screaming territory, threat, protect. She dropped to 4 legs, the world suddenly sharper, clearer, every scent amplified. She turned and snarled. The guard dogs skidded to a stop. Their ears flattened, tails dropped. One of them actually whimpered. Magrita took 1 step forward. Just one. Put every ounce of dominance she had into her stance, her scent, the low rumble in her chest. The dogs turned and ran, tails literally between their legs. "Brilliant!" Merlot called from where he'd scrambled up a vine post. "Absolutely brilliant! Now shift back before someone sees you." Magrita shifted, the change flowing back like water, grabbed her dress, yanked it on. It was inside out. She fixed it, shoved her feet into her boots. Merlot thrust his sample containers at her. "Go, go, go!" They ran, past the vineyard, through a gap in the fence, down the dirt road toward the village. Magrita's lungs burned, her boots, not meant for running, pinched with every step. Merlot bounced in her arms, samples rattling. The B&B appeared like salvation. She hit the porch at a dead run, fumbled her key, got the door open, and practically fell into her room. 5:57 p.m. She had 8 minutes. "Move," Merlot commanded, already dragging the designer tote bag, the one Claire had thrown in free with the purchase, across the bed. "Put me in here, top me with fabric. I need to look decorative, not like I've been conducting agricultural espionage." Magrita grabbed the scarf Claire had also included, burgundy silk, probably cost more than her grocery budget, and arranged it over Merlot in the tote. His nose poked out. Perfect. Very fashion-forward. He settled into the bag. "Now fix yourself. You look like you've been attacked by a vineyard." She ran to the bathroom mirror, mascara smudged, hair wild. Was that dirt on her cheek? And, oh God, a vine leaf stuck above her ear like the world's worst accessory. She scrubbed her face with a washcloth, ran fingers through her hair, pulled out the leaf, applied fresh mascara with shaking hands, added lipstick because Claire had insisted she buy some, and now seemed like the time to use it. The gift. Where was the... On the bed. She grabbed the wrapped miniature railway station. 6:02 p.m. Footsteps on the porch. The doorbell. Magrita took 3 seconds to breathe, grabbed the tote bag with Merlot inside, grabbed the gift, and headed downstairs on legs that felt like overcooked pasta. Dom stood in the foyer, and he'd changed clothes. Dark slacks, a button-down in deep charcoal that made his golden eyes practically glow. He'd shaved. His hair was styled. He looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread titled, "Devastatingly Handsome Men Who Will Ruin Your Life." He turned when he heard her on the stairs. His expression shifted. Surprise, appreciation, something that made her stomach flip, and her wolf purred. "You look perfect," Dom said, voice rough. "Thanks. You too. I mean, you look good. Great. Fine." "Stop talking, Magrita." He smiled, stepped closer. "You've got a little." He reached up, thumb brushing the corner of her eye where mascara had apparently survived her scrubbing. The touch sent electricity down her spine. Then his hand moved to her hair. Plucked something out, held it up. A vine leaf. Small, green, distinctly from a grapevine. "Interesting accessory choice," he said, one eyebrow raised. Think, Magrita, think. Admiring the plants outside the B&B. "Mrs. Chen has this lovely arbor, and I got too close, and..." She was conducting preliminary olfactory analysis of the local flora. Merlot's voice emerged from the tote bag, slightly muffled. For her dissertation research on soil microbes and plant interaction, the vine's aromatic properties suggested Pinot Noir cultivar, which I confirmed through... "Your possum does research analysis?" Dom was definitely fighting a smile now. "He's very thorough," Magrita said weakly. "Apparently." Dom tucked the leaf in his pocket, then held out his arm. "Ready?" "As I'll ever be." He led her to the Jeep, opened her door like this was a real date, waited while she arranged the tote bag carefully on her lap. The gift sat between them. The engine purred to life. They pulled away from the B&B, heading toward the hills where sunset painted the sky in layers of orange and purple and deepening blue. "So," Dom said as they drove, "how long have we been dating?" 3 months, Magrita recited. They'd planned this. "We met at a coffee shop in the city. You spilled your drink on me." "Seems on brand for us," he said, and she laughed despite herself. "I was working on my dissertation. You were having a terrible day at work. We started talking. And I asked you out immediately because you were beautiful and sarcastic, and I'm apparently very smooth when covered in coffee." "Exactly." She settled back into the seat, watching the vineyard rose slip past the window. This felt too easy, too natural, like they'd actually done this, actually met this way. His hand reached over, found hers, laced their fingers together. The touch sent heat racing up her arm, pooling in her chest. Her wolf stirred, interested in a way that had nothing to do with suppressants and everything to do with the warmth of his palm, the calluses on his fingertips, the way his hand completely engulfed hers. "Practicing," he said quietly, voice rough around the edges. "We should look comfortable with each other." "Right. Practicing." But her wolf disagreed. Her wolf whined low and insistent, pressing against her ribcage like it wanted out, like it wanted him. Dom's thumb brushed across her knuckles, slow and deliberate. Once, twice. The motion should have been casual, meaningless. Instead, it felt intimate, intentional. "How long is the drive?" Her voice came out breathier than intended. 20 minutes. His hand tightened on hers. "Maybe 30 if I take the scenic route." "Do you want to take the scenic route?" He glanced at her, golden eyes catching the last rays of sunset streaming through the windshield. Something in his expression made her breath catch, heat and want and a rawness that matched what she felt building in her chest. "I want—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "I want to do this right. For my father. For the family. But you—" His grip on her hand tightened almost to the point of pain. "You feel different. Since the moment you crashed that train into me, you felt different." "Different how? Like I've been waiting for you." The words came out rough, almost angry. "Which is insane. We've known each other for 3 hours. I don't even know your middle name." "I don't have one." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Birth certificate typo, remember? My mother was too exhausted to notice they left it blank." He laughed, the sound low and a little broken. Then he pulled the Jeep over to the side of the road, gravel crunching under the tires, put it in park, killed the engine. The sudden silence was deafening. "What are you—" He turned in his seat, facing her fully now. His hand came up, cupped her jaw. His thumb traced the line of her cheekbone with a gentleness that made her wolf absolutely melt. "Tell me to stop," he said quietly. "Tell me this is just for show, just for tonight, and I'll drive us to the estate and we'll play our parts." Her suppressant bracelet pressed cold against her wrist. Her wolf was clawing at it, desperate and insistent. "And if I don't tell you to stop?" His eyes darkened. "Then I'm going to kiss you. And it won't be practice." She should say no, should maintain boundaries, keep this professional. She was here for a job. This was fake. This was— "Kiss me," she whispered. He did. His mouth found hers with a hunger that stole her breath. His hand slid from her jaw to the back of her neck, fingers threading through her hair. The other hand released hers only to grip her hip, pulling her closer across the console. The kiss was nothing like she'd expected. Not tentative or testing, it was claiming. Desperate. His lips were soft but demanding, coaxing her mouth open, tongue sliding against hers in a way that made her gasp. Heat flooded through her, starting where his mouth moved against hers, spreading down her throat, pooling low in her belly. Her hands found his shoulders, gripping the fabric of his shirt, pulling him closer even though the console was between them and they couldn't get close enough. He tasted like coffee and something darker, something that made her wolf howl with recognition. His scent wrapped around her, cedar and leather, and underneath it something wild and perfect and right. When he broke away, they were both breathing hard, his forehead pressed against hers, his hand still tangled in her hair. "Hell," he breathed. "That was—" "Yeah." He pulled back enough to look at her, golden eyes molten in the fading light. His pupils were blown wide. His lips were slightly swollen from the kiss. He looked as wrecked as she felt. "I've never—" He stopped, shook his head. "That's never happened before." "What hasn't?" "That." He gestured vaguely between them. "Whatever that was. Like lightning. Like coming home. Like—" He kissed her again before she could respond. This time slower, deeper, taking his time to explore. His hand slid from her hip to her waist, thumb brushing the strip of skin where her dress had ridden up slightly. The touch sent sparks racing across her skin. She made a sound, half gasp, half moan, and felt him smile against her mouth. "You're dangerous," he murmured against her lips. Says the man who pulled over to kiss someone he's known for 3 hours. "Best 3 hours of my life." He kissed the corner of her mouth. Her jaw, the spot just below her ear that made her shiver. "Show me." "Show you what?" Her brain was offline, every nerve ending focused on where his mouth was doing devastating things to her neck. "Your wolf." He pulled back, eyes serious now. "I want to see her. I know she's magnificent." Her hand went automatically to her wrist, to the suppressant bracelet. "Dom, please." His hand covered hers. "Let me see you. The real you." She should say no, should explain that suppressants were for safety, for control, for keeping wolves from doing stupid things like recognizing mates they'd just met. But his eyes were so earnest, so open, and her wolf was clawing at her insides, desperate to be seen by him. "Okay," she whispered. His fingers found the clasp of her suppressant bracelet. The metal was warm from her skin, and when he pressed the release, it fell away into his palm. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then sensation exploded through her like a dam breaking. Her wolf surged forward with a force that made her gasp, every scent amplified 100-fold. The leather of the seats, the earth outside, the grapes heavy on nearby vines, and Dom's scent, oh God, his scent wrapped around her like a living thing. Cedar and leather, and underneath it, something primal and wild and absolutely, devastatingly perfect. "Mate," her wolf howled. Not a question, not a hope, a certainty. "Mate, mate, mate." The word echoed through her entire being, reverberating in her bones, singing in her blood. Her vision sharpened, her hearing amplified. She could hear his heartbeat, fast, matching hers. Could smell the shift in his pheromones, surprise, desire, recognition. She swayed, dizzy with the intensity of it. His hands caught her shoulders, steadying her. "Magrita?" Concern in his voice. "Are you?" Then she felt it, saw it. Without the suppressant dulling her senses, she could see his wolf clearly now. It rose behind his eyes like a shadow made of gold and smoke. Massive, powerful, absolutely magnificent. Alpha dominant, she could feel it radiating from him like heat, the kind of wolf that commanded packs, that other wolves followed without question. And his wolf was looking at her like she was the sun. "Mate," it rumbled, deep and certain and reverent. "Mate. Mine. Ours. Mate." The word repeated like a prayer, like a heartbeat, like the most important truth in the universe. Dom's eyes widened. His grip on her shoulders tightened. "You feel that?" "Yes." Her voice shook. "Your wolf. I can see him. He's yours," Dom breathed. "He's saying you're ours. My wolf is—" He looked stunned, absolutely poleaxed. "That's not possible. We just met. Mate bonds don't just— they take time. They need mate, 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 mate." His wolf's call, her wolf's answer. The sound of it filled the Jeep, filled the air between them, undeniable and absolute. "Oh God," Dom said, and he sounded as dizzy as she felt. "This is real. You're really your mate." The words fell from her lips like a confession. "You're mine." They stared at each other, both shocked, both reeling. The mate bond hummed between them like a live wire, sending sparks across her skin everywhere they touched. This wasn't fake. Couldn't be faked. This was as real as gravity, as breathing, as the earth beneath the tires. Dom opened his mouth. To say what, she'd never know, because at that exact moment, her wolf, still howling in triumph, her senses still wide open and sharp, she heard the engine turn over. When had he restarted it? She didn't remember hearing the click of the ignition, didn't remember him shifting into gear. Everything after the suppressant came off was a blur of sensation and mate, mate, mate. His scent, his wolf, the bond humming between them like electricity. The Jeep was moving again, pulling back onto the road. Gravel crunched under tires. The world outside the windows shifted from stationary to rolling motion. Dom was saying something, his voice low and rough. But the blood rushing in her ears drowned out his words. Her wolf was still singing, still celebrating, and every nerve ending was tuned to him. The warmth of his hand still on her shoulder, the cedar leather scent that wrapped around her, the golden wolf behind his eyes that kept calling mate, mate, mate. They crested a hill, and the estate spread before them in the golden light of sunset. Ordered rows of vines, a beautiful house with warm lights, outbuildings clustered around a courtyard. The jeep slowed as they approached the entrance, and there, at the property line where the private road met the estate grounds, lit by the last golden rays of sunset, stood an elegant wooden sign. Hand-carved letters, Professional, Proud Steel Estate Vineyards, Estar, 1973. The world tilted sideways. Chapter 4. The first thing that hit Magrita as she stepped out of the jeep was the scent of home-cooked food. Garlic, rosemary, something roasting that made her stomach growl despite the knot of terror currently residing there. Warm light spilled from every window of the house, a sprawling farmhouse-style building with a wraparound porch and climbing roses that probably looked spectacular in summer. The second thing that hit her was Elena Steele. "Oh!" The woman flew down the porch steps with her arms already open. "Oh, Dom, she's beautiful." Before Magrita could brace herself, she was enveloped in a hug that smelled like vanilla and wine and unconditional acceptance. Elena was small, barely reached Magrita's shoulder, but her embrace had the strength of someone who'd spent decades working with her hands. "I'm so happy to meet you," Elena said, pulling back just enough to cup Magrita's face in her hands. Her eyes were warm brown, crinkling at the corners. So happy. Dom never brings anyone home. Never." "Mom," Dom said, but he was smiling. His hand found the small of Magrita's back, and even through the fabric of her dress, the touch sent heat racing up her spine. The mate bond hummed approval. "Let her breathe, Elena." A man appeared on the porch, tall, silver-haired, moving carefully like each step required consideration. His face was drawn, shadows under his eyes, but his smile was genuine. "I'm Richard. Welcome to Steele Estate." Richard, the father who just wanted his son to be happy. Magrita's throat closed. "Thank you for having me." "Having you?" Elena laughed, looping her arm through Magrita's and pulling her toward the house. "Darling, you're family now. Dom's maid is our daughter. Come, dinner's almost ready and I want to hear everything. How you met, when you knew, all of it." "I helped," a voice called from the doorway. A younger man, mid-20s, with Dom's golden eyes but a softer face, leaned against the frame. "I'm Pete, the better-looking brother." "The delusional brother," Dom corrected, but there was affection in his tone. Pete's gaze dropped to the designer tote bag on Magrita's arm. "Nice bag. Very fashion-forward. Is that—" He squinted. "Is there a possum in there?" Merlot chose that moment to poke his head out, bow tie perfectly arranged. "Merlot Beauregard Pinot Rothschild III," he announced with the gravity of someone introducing royalty. Certified Level 3 sommelier, WSET diploma with distinction, and published contributor to Wine Spectator, Decanter, and, regrettably, one Australian lifestyle blog that I shall not name. Silence fell over the porch. Then Richard started laughing, a deep, wonderful sound that ended in a slight cough. "A sommelier possum. Now I've seen everything." "I like him," Pete declared, stepping forward to examine Merlot more closely. "Can he really taste wine?" "I can taste everything," Merlot said with dignity. "And I have opinions about everything. Currently, I'm detecting notes of extraordinary hospitality with undertones of genuine warmth. It's quite refreshing after— Ow!" Magrita had elbowed the bag, subtly, or not so subtly, given Merlot's squeak. "After traveling," she finished weakly. "It's refreshing after traveling." Elena ushered them inside, still chattering happily. The house was everything the outside promised. Warm wood floors, comfortable furniture that showed wear in all the right places, family photos covering every wall. The scent of cooking intensified, making Magrita's mouth water despite her rising panic. The dining room table was set for 6. Candles flickered in the center, surrounded by a simple arrangement of wildflowers. Wine glasses caught the light. Proper glasses, Magrita noted, not the cheap kind. Sit, sit, Elena commanded, pulling out a chair next to Dom's. Richard, open the 2019. I want Merlot's opinion. The 2019 Reserve? Richard moved to a sideboard where several bottles waited. Our best vintage in a decade. I've tasted it, Merlot said before Magrita could stop him. Extraordinary. The volcanic soil expression is remarkable. Mineral complexity, structured tannins, fruit that speaks to perfect harvest timing. A masterpiece. Richard's eyebrows rose. High praise. Earned praise. Merlot's nose twitched as Richard poured. The terroir here is exceptional. That volcanic ash content in the soil, you can taste it in every sip. It's what makes your wine unique. That's actually what Magrita's studying, Dom said, his hand finding hers under the table. The touch sent warmth up her arm, the mate bond singing with contentment. Volcanic soil composition and its impact on terroir expression. Really? Richard settled into his chair carefully. What's your focus area? Her mind went blank. Completely, devastatingly blank. Mycorrhizal networks, Merlot jumped in smoothly. The symbiotic relationship between fungal colonies and root systems in volcanic ash deposits. Magrita's thesis examines how these networks facilitate nutrient uptake and mineral expression in cool climate viticulture. Everyone turned to look at her. Yes, she managed. Exactly that. The fungal networks. Fascinating, Richard said, and he sounded like he meant it. We've been organic for 15 years now. No synthetic fertilizers, minimal intervention. Let the soil do the work. That's the proper approach, Merlot declared. Wine is made in the vineyard, not the cellar, though proper cellar management is, of course, essential. Pete laughed, leaning forward with interest. Okay, I have to know. How does a possum become a sommelier? Dedication, natural talent, and a refined palate that humans can only dream of achieving. Merlot's whiskers twitched. Also, Magrita rescued me as a kit. I owed her my life, so I made myself useful. By critiquing everything like wine? Pete grinned. It's a compulsion born of excellence. Elena brought out the first course, a salad with greens that probably came from their own garden, dressed with olive oil and aged balsamic. The conversation flowed easily, punctuated by Merlot's commentary and Pete's increasingly ridiculous questions. Magrita tried to relax, tried to enjoy this moment, but her investigator's eye kept cataloging details. The way Richard moved, careful, pained, but not bedridden. Not as bad as Dom had made it sound. Sick, yes, but not dying tomorrow. The warmth between family members, genuine affection, easy teasing, the kind of closeness that came from years of choosing each other daily. The pride in their wine, not arrogance, but the quiet confidence of people who knew they'd built something good. Pete was asking Merlot about tannin structure when Dom's hand squeezed hers under the table. She looked at him, and his eyes were soft with something that made her chest ache. Thank you, he mouthed silently. She forced a smile, squeezed back. The main course appeared. Slow roasted lamb with herbs, roasted vegetables, potatoes that had been crisped in duck fat. It was the kind of meal that took hours to prepare, the kind you made for people you loved. So, Elena said, serving generous portions, how did you two really meet? Dom was terribly vague on the phone. Coffee shop, Dom and Magrita said simultaneously. They looked at each other. Dom's mouth curved. I spilled my coffee on her, he continued. She was working on her dissertation. I was having the worst day. We started talking and... He shrugged. I knew. Knew what? Elena's eyes were bright. That I wanted to know everything about her. Dom's thumb brushed across Magrita's knuckles. That 3 hours later I still didn't want to leave. That she was different from anyone I'd ever met. The mate bond practically purred. Magrita's wolf was doing victory laps. Her conscience was screaming. When was this? Richard asked, cutting his lamb with careful precision. 3 months ago, Magrita said, sticking to their story. It's been good. Really good. 3 months? Elena's smile widened. And you're already mated? Magrita nearly choked on her wine. Dom's hand tightened on hers. We haven't, that's not, Dom started. Oh, please, Elena waved her fork. I can smell it on both of you. The bond snapped, didn't it? Recently, from the strength of it. Today, Dom admitted quietly. In the car. We didn't plan. It just happened. Richard and Elena exchanged a look. Something passed between them. Understanding, memory, joy. That's how it was with us, Richard said. 35 years ago, I was helping with harvest. She brought lunch to the crew and... He snapped his fingers. Like lightning. Like coming home, Elena added softly, looking at her husband with such love that Magrita had to look away. This was worse. So much worse than if they'd been cold or suspicious or anything other than this warm, welcoming, genuine. I need some air, Magrita said abruptly, standing. Just for a moment, the wine, it's gone to my head. Of course, dear. Elena pointed toward a door. The patio's through there. Take your time. Magrita grabbed the tote bag, couldn't leave the stolen soil samples unattended, and escaped onto the patio. Cool evening air hit her face. Stars were beginning to appear overhead, and the vineyard stretched into darkness, rows upon rows of vines heavy with fruit. She set the tote bag down and pressed her hands against the railing. You're spiraling, Merlot said, climbing out of the bag. I'm drowning. Her voice shook. These people they're good. They're genuinely good. And I'm lying to them. And tomorrow they're going to find out I'm the insurance investigator and... Let me see the soil samples. She blinked. What? The samples I collected. Let me examine them properly. Maybe there's something I missed. She pulled the small containers from the bag. Merlot sniffed each one carefully, methodically, his nose twitching with concentration. Well, she whispered, the volcanic ash content is high. That's why their wine is so distinctive. The pH is slightly elevated in the north plot, but nothing that would cause widespread contamination. He looked up at her. The soil is healthy. The vines are healthy. Whatever happened to that 2020 vintage, it didn't originate in the vineyard. You're sure? I'm a sommelier with a nose that can detect oakwood species from scent alone. Yes, I'm sure. His whiskers drooped. These people aren't frauds, Magrita. They're victims of something upstream. Distribution, storage, something beyond their control. The relief that flooded through her was almost painful. The soil is clean. If the process is clean, then whatever happened wasn't their fault. Precisely. Merlot climbed back into the bag. Now pull yourself together and go back inside. That family is wondering if you're having second thoughts about their son. She laughed despite herself, grabbed the bag, turned back toward the house, and stopped. Through the window she could see them. Richard was laughing at something Pete said. Elena was refilling wine glasses. Dom was looking toward the door she'd gone through, concern evident in his expression. Her mate, her investigation target, the same person. Tomorrow, this would all explode. Tomorrow, they'd know the truth. And this warm family dinner would become a memory tainted by lies. But tonight she had this. She went back inside. Everything okay? Dom stood immediately, concern radiating through the mate bond. Perfect. She slid back into her chair, and his hand found hers instantly. I'm perfect. Elena brought out dessert, a tarte tatin with vanilla ice cream that made Merlot whimper with joy. The conversation continued, easy and warm. Pete was regaling them with a story about the youth soccer league when Richard's phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned. The insurance investigator, he said, confirming her arrival time tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. He looked at Dom. Sorry, son. I know you wanted this weekend to just be family time. It's fine, Dad. Dom's thumb brushed across Magrita's knuckles. The claim is important. The vineyard's future depends on it. I just hope this Voss woman is thorough, Elena said, standing to clear plates. We need someone who'll actually investigate, not just rubber stamp a denial. Magrita's stomach dropped to her feet. I'm sure she'll be professional, Richard said. The company wouldn't send someone incompetent. Let me help, Magrita said, grabbing dishes and following Elena to the kitchen before anyone could see her face. The kitchen was warm, smelling of sugar and wine. Elena rinsed plates while Magrita scraped them. I'm so glad Dom found you, Elena said quietly. He loves us, loved this family, but he never convinced the family business is his own. She looked at Magrita. But tonight I saw my son again. He's happy, settled, and I think he might consider coming home for good. all thanks to you." Magrita's throat closed. "He's special." "He is." Elena dried her hands, then turned to face Magrita fully. "Stay here tonight, at the estate. I won't have my future daughter-in-law staying at a B&B like a stranger." "Oh, I couldn't—" "I have 2 boys," Elena continued, and there was something almost fierce in her expression. "2 wonderful boys, but I always wanted a daughter. Someone to—" She laughed, shaking her head. "Listen to me, getting ahead of myself, but please, stay. We have plenty of room, and I'd love the chance to get to know you better." Every instinct screamed to refuse, to maintain distance, to run. But Elena was looking at her with such hope, such genuine warmth, and the mate bond was humming contentment at the thought of staying close to Dom, and, "I'd love to," Magrita heard herself say. "Thank you." Elena's smile could have lit the entire valley. They returned to the dining room, where Merlot was holding court about proper decanting techniques, while Pete hung on every word, and Richard asked surprisingly technical questions. "Magrita's staying the night," Elena announced. "I'm putting her in the blue room." Dom's face transformed, relief and joy and something deeper that made the mate bond sing. "That's great," he said softly. "Really great." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of warmth and laughter. Richard excused himself around 9, fatigue evident in every line of his body, but he hugged Magrita before he went. "Welcome to the family," he said simply. "I'm glad you're here." She watched him go, Elena supporting his arm, and felt tears prick her eyes. Tomorrow they'd hate her. Tonight she had this. Elena showed her to the blue room, airy and comfortable, with a window overlooking the vineyard. Clean towels waited on the bed. Someone had put flowers on the nightstand. "Dom's room is just down the hall," Elena said with a knowing smile. "But I trust you 2 to be responsible." "Mostly." When she left, Magrita sank onto the bed. Merlot climbed out of the tote bag and stretched. "This is a disaster," she whispered. "A delicious disaster," he corrected, with notes of impending catastrophe and a finish of absolute heartbreak. "Not helping. I'm never helping. I'm just observing." He hopped onto the nightstand. "For what it's worth, I like them. The family. Even Pete, who asks ridiculous questions but actually listens to the answers." "Me too," her voice cracked. "That's the problem. I like them too much." A soft knock at the door. Her heart leaped. "Come in," she called. Dom slipped inside, closing the door quietly behind him. He'd changed into soft clothes, worn jeans, a t-shirt that did unfair things to his shoulders. His hair was mussed like he'd been running his hands through it. "Hi," he said. "Hi." He crossed the room, sat beside her on the bed. The mate bond hummed with contentment at his proximity. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For tonight, for being here, for everything." "Dom, my father looked happy." His voice was rough. "I haven't seen him look that happy in years, and my mother, she was practically glowing. Pete actually stayed for the whole dinner instead of disappearing to his office." He took her hand. "You did that." Guilt crashed over her in waves. "I didn't do anything." "You showed up, you stayed, you let my mother fuss over you and listen to my father's stories and let Pete interrogate your possum." He turned to face her fully. "The mate bond, I know it's fast, insane even. But it's real, Magrita. I feel it. Every time I look at you, every time I touch you, it's there. This pull, this certainty." "I feel it too," she whispered. And she did. God help her, she did. He leaned in, forehead pressing against hers. "Stay tomorrow. After the insurance investigator leaves, stay. Spend the weekend. Let us figure out what this is." Tomorrow, when she'd be revealed as the investigator, when this perfect moment would shatter. "Okay," she lied. Because what else could she say? He kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise, and she kissed him back, memorizing the taste of him, the feel of him, storing up this moment for when everything fell apart. When he left, Magrita lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., her professional life and her personal life would collide with the force of a train crash.
Hello, this is a message from DN Leo. I'm pausing the story for just a moment because there's something really special to share with you. If you're loving these stories, the Crash into Love bundle was created just for you. It includes 10 complete shifter romances from this channel, the ones you've loved, commented on, and asked to own, plus 2 exclusive bonus stories you can't get anywhere else. You get premium audiobook editions and ebook editions. Download them, own them forever, listen offline, read anytime, completely ad-free, no subscriptions, no monthly fees, just yours to keep. The link is in the description and pinned in the first comment below. Thank you for supporting this channel. Now, let's get back to the story.
Chapter 5. Magrita didn't sleep. She lay in the blue room with its flower-scented pillows and view of the vineyard, watching moonlight paint shadows across the ceiling, counting down the hours until 9 a.m., until everything ended. The mate bond hummed softly in her chest, content in Dom's proximity somewhere down the hall. Her wolf dozed, satisfied. Neither of them understood what was coming. At 7, she gave up pretending, showered in the ensuite bathroom with its fluffy towels and lavender soap, put on yesterday's dress because it was all she had, braided her hair with shaking fingers. Merlot watched from the nightstand, uncharacteristically quiet. "You could run," he said finally. "Out the window, across the vineyard, be gone before breakfast." "That's not who I am." "No." His whiskers drooped. "It's not." Breakfast smells drifted up the stairs, coffee, bacon, something sweet baking. The sounds of family, Elena's laugh, Pete's voice, the clink of dishes. Normal morning sounds. The last normal morning they'd have with her. Magrita descended the stairs like she was walking to an execution. The dining room was bright with morning sun. Elena had set the table with the same care as last night. Fresh flowers, good china, a carafe of orange juice catching the light. Richard sat at the head, reading something on his tablet. Pete was texting, grinning at his phone. And Dom looked up when she entered, and his whole face transformed. The mate bond sang. "Morning," he said, voice rough with sleep and something warmer. "Coffee?" "Please." He poured for her, their fingers brushing as he handed over the mug. The touch sent sparks up her arm. Everything in her wanted to lean into him, let the bond pull her close, pretend for just a few more minutes. "Did you sleep well?" Elena appeared from the kitchen with a platter of bacon and eggs. "I worried the room might be too warm. The ventilation in that wing is—" "It was perfect," Magrita said. The lie tasted like ash. Everything was perfect. They ate, or everyone else ate. Magrita pushed eggs around her plate, the food turning to sawdust in her mouth. The clock on the wall ticked toward 9 a.m. 8:47. Richard checked his phone. "The investigator should be here soon. Voss, her name is, from Meridian Insurance." Dom's hand found Magrita's under the table, squeezed. "Dad, can we not talk business during breakfast?" "It'll just be a quick meeting," Richard said. "Show her the cellar, the records, answer her questions. Shouldn't take more than a few hours." 8:51. Magrita's heart hammered against her ribs. Her palms were sweating. The mate bond was picking up her anxiety, sending concerned pulses through the connection. "You okay?" Dom murmured, leaning close. "I'm fine. 55. I should probably head out anyway," Magrita said, standing abruptly. Her chair scraped against the floor. "Give you space for the meeting. I can go back to the B&B, get out of your way." "Nonsense," Elena said. "You're staying for the weekend. We talked about this." "But the investigator can work around us," Richard finished. "This is family time. The business can wait its turn." 8:58. The doorbell didn't ring. Richard frowned at his phone. "She's late." He started to dial. "Let me call and—" "Don't!" The word came out strangled. Magrita stood, the designer tote bag, still containing stolen soil samples, gripped in white-knuckled hands. "Don't call. She's not late. She's—" Her voice broke. She couldn't do this, couldn't watch understanding dawn on their faces, couldn't see the warmth turn to betrayal. But she had to. "I'm Magrita Voss," she said. Each word felt like pulling out her own teeth. "From Meridian Insurance. I'm the investigator." Silence crashed over the dining room. Pete's fork clattered against his plate. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. Richard went very still, eyes sharp and assessing. And Dom? Dom looked like she'd physically struck him. What? His voice was barely above a whisper. I'm the investigator. Tears were burning behind her eyes. She wouldn't cry, not yet. I'm here to examine the contaminated vintage claim. That's why I came to the valley. That's my job. You... Dom stood, the chair scraping back. The soil microbes, the dissertation, all of it was a cover story, yes. She forced herself to meet his eyes, to see the hurt there, the betrayal. I didn't know who you were. At the train station, in the car, I had no idea you were Dom Steele. You never said your last name, and by the time I realized... When? His voice was hard now, cold. When did you realize? Last night, when we pulled up to the estate. I saw the sign. The sign. He laughed, bitter and sharp. So the kiss, the suppressant, the mate bond, that was all what? Research? Getting close to the target? No. The tears spilled over. She couldn't stop them. No, that was real. All of it was real. The bond is real. I didn't plan to crash into my life and lie to my family. His golden eyes were blazing now. Didn't plan to sit at our table and smile and let my mother call you daughter while you were investigating us for fraud? I'm not investigating you for fraud. Her voice rose, desperate. The claim is legitimate. The soil is clean. Merlot tested it, illegally, yes. I trespassed on your property and stole samples, and I'm sorry, but the samples are clean. Whatever happened to the 2020 vintage, it didn't originate in your vineyard. Richard stood slowly. You stole soil samples from my property. Yes. While pretending to be my son's girlfriend. Yes. She was shaking now, the tote bag trembling in her grip. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant this was supposed to be a simple job. Show up, examine the evidence, file a report. Was the train even an accident? Dom asked. Something in his voice was breaking, and it killed her to hear it. Or was that plan too? Get my attention, make me feel guilty, worm your way in? It was an accident. I'm an idiot who can't control a steam locomotive. That part was completely, catastrophically real. She wiped at her eyes with the back of her hand. Dom, please. I know you have no reason to believe me, but I'm telling you the truth now. I'm here to investigate the claim, yes, but I'm also... Also what? His jaw was tight enough to crack. Also my mate, that convenient? I can't control my stupid wolf, but I'm sure as hell I can reject you. Don't, Dom. You'll regret this. Alana's voice rang out. Dom shook his head. You give me no choice, Mag. I reject you as my mate. Now you can leave. She turned to Richard and Elena. I'm sorry for lying, for the intrusion, for... Her throat closed. For all of it. You have a beautiful family and a beautiful home, and you deserved better than this. Elena's eyes were wet. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Magrita headed for the door. Each step felt like walking through concrete. She looked at Dom, memorizing him. The golden eyes, the sharp jaw, the way morning light caught in his dark hair. Her mate, the person her wolf had chosen, the person she'd just lost. I'm sorry, she whispered. For what it's worth, last night was the best night of my life. Then she turned and walked out. The morning air was cool on her tear-stained face. Birds sang in the vineyard. The sun was bright and warm. Everything was beautiful and wrong. She made it to the end of the driveway before her legs gave out. She sat on the stone wall that bordered the property, the tote bag beside her, and let herself break. Merlot climbed out, settled on her lap. He didn't say anything, just sat there, warm and solid and present. I'm detecting notes of complete devastation, he said finally, with undertones of shattered dreams and a finish of, don't. Her voice was raw. Please don't. Hope, he finished quietly, a finish of hope. Because you told the truth, because you did the right thing, even when it cost you everything. It doesn't feel right. It rarely does. He patted her hand with one small paw. But it was, trust me. She didn't know how long she sat there. Time felt broken, meaningless. The sun climbed higher. Her tears dried, leaving her face tight and salty. The sound of a car made her look up. Pete's truck pulled alongside the wall. He leaned out the window, expression unreadable. "It's a long walk to town," he said. "Let me drive you to the metro station." "I'm fine." "You're sitting on a wall crying. That's not fine." He opened the passenger door. "Come on. My brother might hate you right now, but I don't have to." "Pete, get in the truck, Magrita. You did a shitty thing, but you came clean. That counts for something. Not everything, but something." She climbed in. Merlot settled in her lap, unusually quiet. They drove in silence for a while, the vineyard giving way to open country, then the first houses of the village. "He'll come around," Pete said finally. "Dom, he's hurt, but he felt the mate bond too. That doesn't just go away." "It should." Her voice was flat. "I lied to all of you." "Yeah, you did." He glanced at her. "But you also told the truth when it mattered. Could have kept lying. Could have finished the investigation and left without us ever knowing. But you didn't. I couldn't. I know. That's why I think there's hope." He pulled up in front of the B&B. "For what it's worth, I liked you. Still do. You made my brother smile like I haven't seen in years. You made my mom happy. That's not nothing." "Thank you." She climbed out, then hesitated. "Pete, the contamination. Whatever happened to that vintage, it wasn't natural. Someone did this to you, deliberately." His expression darkened. "You think?" "I don't know for sure, but I'm going to find out." He nodded slowly. "Keep me posted?" "If I can." She watched him drive away, then turned toward the B&B. She needed to get her things. Change out of this dress. Figure out the dress. She looked down at the blue fabric Claire had helped her pick. The dress Dom had paid for. The dress she'd worn to dinner with his family. She couldn't keep it. 10 minutes later, Magrita stood in lavender and lace, the garment bag with the dress and shoes in hand. Claire looked up from her phone, smile fading when she saw Magrita's face. "Oh, honey, what happened?" "I need to return these." Magrita set the bag on the counter. "Charge whatever restocking fee you need. I can't keep them." "Did something happen with Dom?" "Everything. Everything happened." "It didn't work out," Magrita managed. "I'm heading back to the city." Claire's expression softened. "Keep the dress." "I can't." "Honey, I've run this shop for 20 years. I know a broken heart when I see one." She pushed the garment bag back across the counter. "Keep it. Maybe someday you'll want to remember the good parts." Magrita's throat closed. She nodded, unable to speak, and turned to leave. Outside, the village was waking up properly. Shops opening. People starting their days. Normal life continuing while her world had imploded. She started walking toward the train station. It was miles away. She didn't care. A truck rattled up beside her. Faded paint, the words Valley Dairy barely visible on the side. An older man leaned out. "You heading to the station, love?" "Yes. Hop in. I'm delivering milk to the cafe there. Save you the walk." Magrita climbed into the passenger seat. The truck smelled like milk and hay and honest work. Merlot poked his head out of the tote bag. "Well, hello there." The man grinned. "A possum, and wearing a bow tie. Now that's something." "Merlot Beauregard Pinot Rothschild III," Merlot announced, perking up slightly. "Certified sommelier." "Is that right?" The man pulled back onto the road. "I'm Frank. Been delivering milk in this valley for 35 years. Never met a possum sommelier before." "There are only 3 of us in the southern hemisphere," Merlot said with dignity. They drove through the countryside, and despite everything, Magrita found herself asking, "What do you know about Steele Estate?" "The Steeles?" Frank's expression warmed. "Good people, best in the valley. Half the town depends on that vineyard, directly or indirectly. Richard employs 30 people during harvest, buys local whenever he can, sponsors the kids' programs. When my daughter needed surgery a few years back, Elena organized a fundraiser, raised $20,000. Magrita's chest ached. Of course they had. "But good products always attract competition," Frank continued. "There's been talk, other vineyards wanting their market share, particularly the Riverside Pack in the next town. They've been trying to muscle into the valley for years. Business and territory." "Riverside Pack?" "Wolves. Different pack than the Steeles. There's tension. Has been for a generation." He glanced at her. "Why do you ask?" "Just curious." But her investigator brain was turning. Contamination that happened mysteriously. A rival pack wanting territory and business. A claim that could bankrupt the Steeles if it wasn't paid, forcing them to sell. "Frank," she said slowly, "if someone wanted to sabotage Steele Estate, wanted to make it look like they couldn't be trusted to produce good wine, how would they do it?" He was quiet for a moment. "You'd have to get to the wine after it left the vineyard. After bottling, during distribution maybe, or in storage before it ships to retailers." "Who handles their distribution?" "Valley Distribution Center, about 20 miles east. They handle logistics for all the smaller vineyards in the region." Magrita pulled out her phone, started taking notes. "And who owns Valley Distribution?" "Family called Morrison, but they sold to a larger company last year. Can't remember the name, some corporate outfit." She could find out. She could investigate. She could... "You can't help the Steeles for what happened in the past," she said quietly, more to herself than Frank. "But you might be able to do something for the future." Merlot's head snapped up. "You're going to investigate the distribution center. Someone contaminated that wine deliberately, destroyed 5,000 bottles, nearly destroyed a family." Her hands clenched into fists. "I'm going to find out who, and I'm going to make sure they can't do it again." "That's outside your contract scope," Merlot pointed out. "You were hired to determine if the Steele's claim is fraudulent. You've done that. Your job is over." "I know. You'll be working on your own time, unpaid, possibly crossing professional boundaries." "I know. The Steeles might not even want your help. Dom certainly won't." Pain lanced through her chest. "I know." Merlot was quiet for a long moment. Then, "What do you need me to do?" She looked at him. "You're not going to argue?" "For once, no." His whiskers twitched. "Those people fed me a 2019 reserve and treated me like family. Someone hurt them. I'd like to know who." He paused. "Also, you're in love with that wolf, and he's your mate, and I refuse to let some corporate sabotage be the reason you two can't be together." "Don't." He held up a paw. "We're doing this. We're finding out who contaminated the wine. We're saving the vineyard. And then you're going to grovel appropriately and win back your mate." "He might not want me back." "Then we'll die trying." Merlot's eyes gleamed. "I didn't spend 5 years learning about terroir and tannins to watch good wine producers get destroyed by sabotage. This is personal now." Frank pulled up to the train station. "Here you are, love." "Thank you." Magrita climbed out, then hesitated. "Frank, if I find proof that someone deliberately sabotaged Steele Estate, proof that could stop them from doing it again, would you testify to what you know about the rival packs and the business competition?" "Absolutely." His expression was grim. "Those Steeles are good people. If someone's coming after them dirty, I want to help stop it." She watched him drive away, then turned to look at the train station. She could get on a train, go back to the city, file her report, move on with her life. Or she could fight. For the family who'd welcomed her. For the vineyard that produced extraordinary wine. For the mate who'd looked at her with such hope before she'd destroyed it. For the truth. "Valley Distribution Center," she said to Merlot, 20 miles east. "How do you feel about breaking and entering?" "I feel that it's a terrible idea that will probably get us arrested." Merlot's grin was feral. "Let's do it." Magrita pulled up the map on her phone, plotted the route, and started walking in the opposite direction of the train. Behind her, the valley spread out in morning light. Somewhere back there, Dom was hurting. His family was reeling. Her mate bond was stretched thin and aching. But ahead was the truth. And maybe, if she was very lucky and very brave, redemption. "Notes of redemption," Merlot said softly, with undertones of justice and a finish of, "Don't say it." "Hope." She smiled, despite everything, despite the pain and the fear and the impossible task ahead. "Hope," she agreed. "Let's go with that." And they walked toward the rising sun, toward answers, toward whatever came next, together. Chapter 6. Valley Distribution Center sat 20 miles east of the village, squatting like a concrete toad at the intersection of two rural highways. The building was massive, all corrugated metal and loading docks, with VDC Logistics painted across the front in fading letters. "This is a terrible idea," Merlot observed from the tote bag as Magrita crouched behind a dumpster, surveying the property. "You said you were in." "I said it was a terrible idea we should do anyway. There's a distinction." His nose twitched. "I'm detecting notes of impending arrest, with undertones of trespassing charges and a finish of possible bodily harm." "Noted." Magrita checked her phone. 2:47 p.m. Most of the loading dock workers would be on afternoon break. She'd watched the patterns for 2 hours, watched the trucks come and go, the workers disappear for exactly 20 minutes at 2:30. She had 13 minutes. "Ready?" she asked. "Absolutely not. Let's proceed." They moved quickly across the parking lot, keeping low. Magrita's boots, thank God she'd changed back into practical clothes, made soft sounds on asphalt. The main entrance would have cameras, but the loading dock on the east side had a blind spot she'd identified. Old building, old security system, corners cut. The dock door was locked, but not well. Magrita pulled her lockpick set from her pocket, a skill learned during a previous investigation involving a storage unit fraud ring, and worked the tumblers. Click, click. The lock gave. "Remind me to never let you near my wine cellar," Merlot muttered. Inside, the distribution center was a maze of metal shelving units stretching toward the ceiling, each stacked with boxes. The air smelled like cardboard and dust, and something chemical she couldn't identify. Industrial lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in sickly yellow. "We're looking for Steel Estate inventory," Magrita whispered, pulling out her phone for light. "Anything from the 2020 vintage. Records, bottles, shipping manifests. And we have approximately," Merlot checked an imaginary watch, 11 minutes before someone returns from break and discovers us." They moved deeper into the warehouse. The shelving units were organized by vineyard, thank God. She found the section marked Steel Estate Vineyards and started scanning boxes. 2019 Reserve, 2019 Standard, 2018 Reserve, 2021. "Here," she breathed, 2020 Pinot Noir Reserve. She pulled down a box. It was sealed, but when she shook it gently, she heard the distinctive sound of bottles with too much liquid. Wrong. Wine bottles should sound full, heavy, settled. "Open it," Merlot commanded. Magrita used her keys to slice through the tape. Inside, 6 bottles of Steel Estate 2020 Reserve. The labels were perfect. The bottles looked untouched. She opened one carefully, nose wrinkling at the smell that hit her. "Oh," Merlot said softly. "Oh, that's bad." The wine smelled wrong. Not just off, actively contaminated. Vinegar and something chemical underneath. Something that didn't belong anywhere near wine. Acetic acid bacteria. Merlot's nose twitched rapidly. But not natural spoilage. This was introduced, deliberately. I can smell the carrier solution. Something petroleum-based. This was injected through the cork. Can you prove it? Get me to a lab with proper equipment, yes. Here, with just my nose? He paused. Yes, but a court won't accept possum testimony, no matter how certified I am. Magrita pulled out her phone, started taking photos. The box, the bottles, the shipping labels, the contamination. She needed documentation, needed footsteps. Her heart stopped. The loading dock door opening. Voices, multiple people, not the casual chatter of workers returning from break. Purposeful, searching. Tracks on the east dock. Someone broke the lock. Check the inventory sections. If it's corporate espionage, they'll be in the high-value areas. Magrita shoved the bottles back in the box, frantically looking for somewhere to hide. The shelving units were open on all sides. No offices visible from here, just rows and rows of exposed shelving. There, Merlot hissed, pointing with his paw toward a section marked Cold Storage, Temperature Controlled. They ran, as quietly as possible while running, toward the cold storage entrance. Heavy door, meant to maintain temperature. Magrita pulled it open, slipped inside, eased it closed. The temperature dropped immediately. Breath fogging. She could see rows of temperature-sensitive inventory, wines that needed specific storage conditions. We're trapped, Merlot observed. If they check this room, there's one exit, and we're in it. Working on it. Magrita moved deeper into the cold storage, looking for another way out. Emergency exit? Ventilation shaft? Anything? The voices outside grew louder. Steel estate section's been disturbed. Box is open. Check the cold storage. No. Magrita looked up. Ventilation shaft high on the wall, too high to reach, too small for her to fit through. But, Merlot, she whispered, can you fit through that? He followed her gaze. Barely. Why? Because you need to get out. Get help. Find... Her throat closed. Find the Steels. Tell them what we found. Get them here. I'm not leaving you. If they catch me, I'm caught. If they catch both of us, no one knows what we found. She was already stacking boxes, creating a makeshift ladder. You're small, fast. They won't see you. Get out, get help, come back with the cavalry. This is the worst plan you've ever had. So you'll do it? He climbed onto her shoulder as she scaled the boxes. She boosted him up to the vent. His small paws gripped the metal grate. The Steels hate me, she said quietly. But they'll listen to you. Tell them I found proof. Tell them I'm sorry. Tell them... The cold storage door opened. Go! Magrita dropped from the boxes as Merlot squeezed into the ventilation shaft, his tail disappearing just as two men entered. They weren't wearing VDC uniforms, expensive suits. One was tall, silver-haired, with the bearing of someone used to command. The other was younger, broader, with a scar across his left eyebrow. Both were wolves. She could smell it now, could see it in the way they moved. Predatory, dangerous. Well, the older one said, what do we have here? Magrita straightened, forcing her voice steady. I'm an insurance investigator, Magrita Voss, Meridian Insurance. I'm here examining a contamination claim. In our cold storage? Without authorization? The older wolf smiled, and it wasn't friendly. That's called breaking and entering, Ms. Voss. Your facility is part of my investigation. Steel Estate Vineyards submitted a claim for contaminated wine. I have evidence that contamination originated here during storage or distribution. Evidence? The younger wolf moved closer, cutting off her path to the door. What evidence? The 2020 reserve. Someone injected acetic acid bacteria into the bottles using a petroleum-based carrier solution. It's deliberate sabotage. The older wolf's expression didn't change. Those are serious accusations, with serious proof. Her phone was in her back pocket, photos safely stored. I've documented everything, contaminated bottles, shipping records, storage locations. It's all, let me guess. The older wolf pulled out his own phone. This documentation? Her phone buzzed. She pulled it out automatically. The photos were gone, not just deleted, completely wiped from her device. Remote access is such a useful thing, he said pleasantly, especially when you've been using the facility Wi-Fi for the past hour. Did you really think we weren't monitoring our own network? Her stomach dropped. Who are you? She asked, though she was beginning to understand. Marcus Riverside. I own Riverside Vineyards, and as of 6 months ago, I own Valley Distribution Center. His smile widened, which means I own the distribution rights for every small vineyard in this region, including Steel Estate. You contaminated their wine. I ensured their wine developed quality issues during storage. Wine is delicate. Temperature fluctuations, contamination, these things happen. He shrugged. Tragic, really, but it does free up market share. And when their insurance claim is denied, as it will be since you'll never file that report, they'll have no choice but to sell, at a significant loss, naturally. To you. To me. Their vineyard, their brand, their distribution channels. I've been trying to acquire Steel Estate for 15 years. Richard Steele is stubborn. But bankruptcy has a way of making people flexible. The younger wolf pulled out a length of rope. What do we do with her? She broke into our facility, stole inventory, tampered with merchandise. Marcus's voice was casual, too casual. I think we discovered her during a robbery attempt. She resisted. Tragically, she fell from a shelving unit during the confrontation. Ice flooded Magrita's veins. You can't. People know I'm here. Do they? A disgraced investigator who lied to the family she was supposed to be assessing? Who was seen leaving Steel Estate in tears this morning? He shook his head. You went rogue, Miss Voss. Got emotionally involved. Started making wild accusations. Broke into a private facility. These things happen. The younger wolf moved toward her. Magrita backed up. Her hand went to her wrist, to the suppressant bracelet that wasn't there because she'd left it in Dom's car last night. Her wolf surged forward with a snarl. She shifted. The change ripped through her, fur and fangs and fury. Her clothes tore. The tote bag fell. She dropped to 4 legs, every sense amplified, rage and fear burning through her veins. The younger wolf shifted too. Bigger than her, broader, but she was fast. She dodged his lunge, teeth snapping at his flank. Drew blood. He yelped. "Enough!" Marcus's voice cracked like a whip. "Take her down. Don't kill her yet. Make it look like an accident." 2 against 1, both larger, both male, both trained. Magrita was going to die in a cold storage unit, and no one would know the truth. Her wolf howled, rage and defiance and grief. The mate bond in her chest pulled tight, screaming across the distance. "Dom," she thought desperately. "I'm sorry. I tried." The wolves circled. She backed against the wall, teeth bared, ready to fight until the cold storage door exploded inward. Not opened, exploded. Metal shrieking, hinges tearing free. 2 massive wolves stood in the wreckage. One was dark gray, nearly black, with golden eyes that blazed with fury. Bigger than Marcus, bigger than the younger wolf, radiating alpha dominance that made the air itself feel heavy. Dom. The other was slightly smaller, lighter gray, with the same golden eyes and a growl that promised violence. "Pete." "Mate," Dom's wolf rumbled. The sound vibrated through her bones. "Mine." He launched himself at Marcus with a snarl that shook the building. Pete took the younger wolf, hitting him with the force of a truck. They crashed into shelving, bottles shattering, boxes tumbling. Dom and Marcus were a blur of fur and teeth. Marcus was older, experienced, but Dom was enraged. The mate bond sang through Magrita, amplifying every emotion. Mine, protect, kill. She should help, should shift back, call for actual help, do something useful. But she was frozen, watching her mate tear apart the wolf who'd threatened her. Marcus got in a good hit, claws raking down Dom's shoulder, drawing blood. Dom didn't even flinch, just kept coming, relentless, furious, feral. He got Marcus by the throat. "Dom, don't!" Magrita shifted back, suddenly human and very naked and very aware that murder charges wouldn't help anyone. "Don't kill him. We need him alive to testify." Dom's jaws tightened. Marcus made a choked sound. "Please," she whispered. "Please, I need him alive. I need the truth on record." For a long moment, Dom didn't move. His wolf was screaming for blood. She could feel it through the bond. Rage and fear and mine all tangled together. Then slowly he released Marcus, let him drop to the floor, gasping. Pete had the younger wolf pinned, teeth at his throat. "Don't move," Pete growled, somehow speaking through his wolf form, a trick of alpha dominance. "Don't even breathe wrong." Magrita looked around frantically for something to wear, settled for a canvas tarp from a nearby pallet, wrapping it around herself. "How did you—" she started. A squeaking sound from the ventilation shaft. Merlot emerged, bow tie askew, riding on. Was that a rat? "I found them at the estate," Merlot announced proudly. Explained the situation. Dom went absolutely feral, destroyed a dining room chair in his haste to shift. "It was magnificent. Then I hitched a ride on Reginald here." He patted the rat. "Who knows the local sewage systems extensively? We guided them here through the drainage tunnels." "You hitched a ride on a sewer rat." "Desperate times, darling. Also, Reginald prefers drainage specialist." The rat squeaked indignantly. Dom shifted back. Suddenly, devastatingly human and equally naked. He looked at her, and his expression was complicated. Angry, relieved, still hurt, but alive with something fierce and possessive. "You're an idiot," he said roughly. "I know. You could have died. I know. You broke into a distribution center with a possum and no backup plan." To be fair, Merlot was the backup plan. "I'm an excellent backup plan," Merlot protested. Dom crossed the space between them in 3 strides, pulled her against his chest, tarp and all. She felt him shaking. "I felt it," he said into her hair. "Through the bond, terror, pain, rage. I felt you fighting, and I—" His arms tightened until she could barely breathe. Don't ever do that again." "I found proof," she whispered. "They contaminated the wine. Marcus Riverside. He owns the distribution center. He's been sabotaging your family to force you to sell." "I don't care. You should care. This is your vineyard, your family's legacy." "I care about you!" The words exploded out of him. "I care that you almost died. I care that I felt you terrified through the bond and thought I might be too late. I care that you're standing here wrapped in a tarp because you risked everything to save my family's business even after I... His voice broke. "You said terrible things," she finished quietly. "You had every right to." "I lied." "You told the truth when it mattered." His hands cupped her face. "You came clean. You didn't have to. Could have finished the investigation and left, but you didn't. I couldn't lie to you anymore. Couldn't lie to your family, even though you knew it would destroy everything, especially because of that." She met his eyes. "I'm sorry for the lies, for the deception, for not figuring out who you were sooner. I'm so..." He kissed her, hard and desperate and claiming, his hands tangled in her hair. She dropped the tarp, didn't care, couldn't care, and wrapped her arms around his neck. The mate bond sang. "Hem!" Pete's voice, extremely amused. "While I'm enjoying this heartwarming reunion, we have 2 hostile wolves detained and 0 clothing between the 4 of us. Maybe we save the making up for later?" Dom broke the kiss, but kept his forehead pressed to hers. "Later," he agreed. "We're definitely continuing this later. I'm still angry with you," Magrita managed. "I'm still angry with you, too." "Good. We can be angry together." He laughed, the sound rough and beautiful. "Deal." Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone, probably Merlot, had called the police. "The photos," Magrita said suddenly. "They wiped my phone. We don't have evidence." "Actually," Merlot said smugly, "I photographed everything with my phone before we separated." "You have a phone?" "Of course I have a phone. How else would I maintain my wine blog?" "Amateur." He pulled a tiny smartphone from somewhere, possibly his fur. "All evidence safely backed up to 3 separate cloud servers. I'm not a complete novice at espionage." Marcus groaned from the floor. "You can't prove anything." "We can prove you just confessed to sabotage and attempted murder in front of 4 witnesses," Pete pointed out. "Also, you're bleeding all over your expensive suit. That's definitely evidence." Police cars screeched into the parking lot. Dom wrapped the tarp around Magrita, protective and possessive. "My mate," he said simply when the officers entered. "She's an insurance investigator. She uncovered sabotage. These 2..." He gestured at Marcus and the younger wolf. "Attempted to kill her. We intervened." "He broke my door," Marcus sputtered. "Property damage, assault. You tried to murder someone," one officer said dryly. "I think we'll lead with that." The next hour was chaos. Statements taken, evidence collected. Merlot providing his phone to officers while wearing his bow tie and explaining tannin structures. Reginald the Rat given a formal commendation for drainage system navigation assistance. Someone found emergency clothing, scratchy blankets that smelled like storage but better than tarps. Magrita sat in the back of an ambulance getting her minor scrapes treated, watching Dom give his statement to police. He kept glancing at her, like he needed to confirm she was still there. The mate bond hummed between them. Not fixed, not healed, but alive, present, real. Pete dropped onto the ambulance bumper beside her. "Hell of a day." "You could say that." "For what it's worth, I knew you weren't trying to hurt us. You came clean. That matters." "Does it matter to your parents?" "Mom cried after you left. Dad threw a coffee mug at the wall." He shrugged. "But they listened when I explained what you were doing. When Merlot showed up, explained you'd found proof of sabotage and were in danger." He smiled. "Mom told Dom if he didn't save his mate immediately, she'd disown him. She did not. She absolutely did. Also threatened to withhold her pasta recipe. That's serious business in our family." Magrita laughed despite everything. "I don't deserve you people." "Probably not, but you're stuck with us now. Mate bond's permanent and Mom's already planning where to put your stuff in Dom's room." "We're still angry." "You're mates." He said it like it explained everything, and maybe it did. "You'll figure it out, probably while fighting. Definitely while making up." He grinned. "Welcome to the family, Magrita." Try not to almost die again for at least a week. Dom finished his statement, walked over, sat on her other side. They sat like that, the three of them, watching police process the scene, package evidence, load Marcus and his associate into separate vehicles. "I'm sorry," Magrita said quietly. "For lying, for the train, for all of it." "I'm sorry for what I said," Dom replied. "About whether you planned to meet me. I knew that was wrong even as I said it." "You were hurt. You had every right." "I was an ass." He took her hand. "I'm going to be an ass again, probably. We're both going to screw this up, but—" He squeezed. "We'll figure it out." "Together?" "Together." Merlot hopped up beside them, still wearing his bow tie, looking extremely pleased with himself. "I'm detecting notes of reconciliation," he announced, with undertones of tentative hope and a finish of, "If you say catastrophe, I'm feeding you to Reginald," Magrita warned. "I was going to say happily ever after," he sniffed, "but fine. No romance for the possum sommelier. Just danger and sewer systems and unappreciated heroism." Dom laughed, actually laughed. The sound made something in Magrita's chest unclench. "Come on," he said, standing and pulling her up. "Let's go home. Mom's probably wearing a hole in the kitchen floor, worrying." "Home?" "The estate." His eyes were warm. "If you want, if you're ready." She looked at him, at Pete, at Merlot preening on the ambulance bumper, at the wreckage of the distribution center, and the police cars, and the evidence that would save his family's vineyard. "Yeah," she said, "I'm ready." He took her hand, Pete grabbed Merlot, and they walked toward the waiting police car that would give them a ride back to the valley, back to the estate, back to a family that might forgive her, back home. The mate bond hummed approval, and for the first time since seeing that sign last night, Magrita let herself hope. Chapter 7. The Jeep pulled up to Steele Estate just as the sun was setting, painting the vineyard in shades of gold and amber. Magrita sat in the passenger seat, still wrapped in a scratchy police blanket that smelled like mothballs and regret, watching the house come into view. Elena and Richard stood on the porch, waiting. Her stomach dropped. Maybe this is a bad idea. Maybe I should go back to the B&B, give them space. "You're not running." Dom's hand tightened on hers. "We face this together. Together while you're wearing pants and I'm wearing evidence storage blanket. You make it work," Pete said from the back seat, where he was carefully holding Merlot like precious cargo. Very chic disaster aesthetic. The Jeep stopped. Magrita didn't move. "I can't do this," she whispered. "Your parents. I lied to them. I sat at their table. Let your mother call me daughter. And the whole time I was—" "Doing your job with integrity," Dom interrupted, "and then risking your life to save our family's business. My mother knows that. My father knows that. Now get out of the car before I carry you." "You wouldn't—" He was already opening her door, reaching for her. "Okay, okay." She climbed out, clutching the blanket, faced the porch, faced Elena and Richard. Elena descended the steps first, not running, but purposeful, determined. Magrita braced herself. Elena pulled her into a hug so fierce it knocked the breath from her lungs. "You almost died." Elena's voice was thick. "You almost died for us, for people who'd thrown you out, for a business that wasn't even yours to save." "I'm sorry," Magrita managed, throat closing. "I'm so sorry for lying, for deceiving you, for having integrity." Richard's voice was gruff. He'd followed Elena down, moving carefully. "For telling the truth when it cost you everything? For finding the bastards who tried to destroy us?" He reached out, touched her shoulder. "Stupid, brave, ridiculous girl." "I prefer insurance investigator," Magrita said weakly. "Your family now." Richard's hand squeezed. "Mates don't lie, but they do stupid things for the people they love. I can respect that, even though especially because you did." Elena pulled back, cupping Magrita's face. Tears tracked down her cheeks. "You came clean knowing we'd hate you. You investigated anyway, knowing it might destroy your relationship with Dom. You risked your life because it was the right thing to do." She laughed, watery. "If that's not family, I don't know what is." Something in Magrita's chest cracked open. "I don't deserve— none of us deserve the grace we're given. Richard said quietly. We just accept it and try to do better. Can you do that? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. Elena linked her arm through Magrita's. Now come inside. You smell like evidence locker and look like you fought a wolf. Wait, she glanced at Dom. Did she fight a wolf? 2 wolves, Pete supplied helpfully. Also broke into a distribution center, discovered corporate sabotage, nearly died, got rescued by her mate who destroyed a very expensive door, and befriended a sewer rat named Reginald. Of course she did, Elena sighed. Well, at least life won't be boring. They moved toward the house. Magrita's legs felt unsteady, like the ground might give way at any moment. I should mention, Merlot called from Pete's arms, that I was instrumental in the rescue. I navigated drainage systems, coordinated wolf logistics, and maintained photographic evidence integrity throughout. I accept payment in 2019 reserve and acknowledgement of my heroism. You'll get both, Richard promised, along with a formal position if you want it. Head sommelier, full access to the cellar, creative control over the tasting menu. Merlot's whiskers quivered. That's the terroir here is acceptable. The cellar conditions adequate. The vintage selection shows promise. He paused. Yes, I accept. Try to contain your enthusiasm, Pete said dryly. I'm detecting notes of barely suppressed joy, Merlot sniffed, with undertones of professional dignity and a finish of, oh fine, I'm delighted. Happy? I love it here. I love this family. Don't make me say it again. Inside, the house smelled like dinner, something rich with garlic and wine. The dining room table was set, 6 places like last night, like they'd been expecting her. Sit, Elena commanded. I'll get you proper clothes. Then we eat, then we talk. I should explain, after food. Elena's tone brooked no argument. You look like you're about to fall over. Food first, explanation second. Elena led Magrita upstairs to get cleaned up. While Magrita showered in the guest bathroom, Elena laid out clothes on the bed. Soft jeans, a sweater that smelled like vanilla. When Magrita emerged, toweling her hair, Elena was standing by the dresser, looking at the miniature railway station. He kept it, Elena said softly, touching one of the tiny carved passengers. On his dresser, where he sees it every morning. I didn't know it would mean so much, Magrita said. It was just, I felt terrible about breaking the other one, and I wanted... Do you know why that gift mattered? Elena turned, eyes bright. Why I wanted that specific model? Magrita shook her head. Because I love trains. Elena's smile was almost shy. Always have. My father was a railway engineer. I grew up riding in engine cabs, learning about steam pressure and track maintenance. When Richard and I were courting, he'd take me on the Heritage Railway every Sunday. That's where he proposed, on the platform, just as the train was pulling in. I didn't know. How could you? Elena touched the miniature station again. When Dom told me he'd commissioned that model, I cried. It wasn't just a train. It was my father, my courtship, my whole history. And when you destroyed it... She laughed. I was devastated. But then you made this. Spent money you probably didn't have, put it together with such care. You didn't know what it meant to me, but you tried to make it right anyway. Elena. And that's when I knew. Elena crossed to her, took her hands. That you were good for my son. That you had integrity. That even when you made mistakes, you tried to fix them. She squeezed. Also, any woman who loves trains enough to destroy one in spectacular fashion is okay in my book. Magrita laughed despite the tears burning her eyes. I do love trains. Obsessively. I have a model collection in my apartment. Then we'll have to ride the Heritage Railway together. Elena's eyes gleamed. Maybe convince Bernard to let you back on, though you might be banned for life. Definitely banned for life. We'll work on it. Elena hugged her again. Welcome to the family, Magrita. We're slightly insane, but we're yours now. They went back downstairs. The food was incredible. Braised short ribs, roasted vegetables, potatoes swimming in butter. Elena kept putting more on Magrita's plate. Dom sat beside her, hand finding hers under the table every few minutes, like he needed to confirm she was real. They were halfway through the meal when Richard's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, went very still. It's Dr. Morrison, he said quietly. The table fell silent. Elena's hand flew to her mouth. "The test results," Dom said. "Dad, I need to take this." Richard stood carefully, phone pressed to his ear. "Yes, this is Richard Steele. Yes, I see. And the—" His voice dropped too low to hear. Elena gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white. Pete had stopped eating. Dom's hand tightened on Magrita's until it almost hurt. The seconds stretched like hours. Richard came back, face unreadable. He sat down slowly. "Well?" Elena's voice was barely above a whisper. "It's not cancer," Richard said. The words fell like stones into still water. "The scans came back clear. The heart condition is real. Significant coronary artery disease, some damage from the stress of the past few months. But it's manageable. Medication, lifestyle changes, reduced stress." Elena made a sound, half laugh, half sob. "Manageable?" "I'm not dying. Not imminently, anyway." Richard's voice was rough. "But I can't keep running the vineyard the way I have been. The doctor was clear. I need to cut my workload by at least 60%. Delegate. Step back from daily operations." "Dad, that's—" Dom started. "That's reality." Richard looked at his sons. "I've been holding on too tight, trying to do everything myself. Nearly killed me, and nearly destroyed what we built." He paused. "I need you both. Not visiting, not helping, running this place for real, full time." "I'm already here," Pete said immediately. "I'm in. Whatever you need. And I—" Dom stopped, looked at Magrita. "My consulting business in the city can be done remotely," Magrita finished. "Or you can take fewer clients, or we figure it out together." "We?" His eyes searched hers. "We." She squeezed his hand. "I'm not going anywhere. If you're here, I'm here." Something in Dom's expression shifted, relief and hope and love all tangled together. "Then I'm in too," he said, turning back to his father. "Full-time, co-manager, whatever you need." "Both of you," Richard's voice cracked, "running this place together, building something that lasts." He looked at Elena. "Something worth protecting." Elena was crying openly now. "You're okay. You're going to be okay." "I'm going to be okay." He pulled her close. "We're all going to be okay." They finished dinner in a different mood. Lighter, hopeful, real. The fear that had been hovering over everything had a name now. A treatment plan, a future. After the dishes were cleared, they gathered in the living room. Richard pulled out blueprints and marketing materials. "Since I'm stepping back anyway," he said, "Elena and I have been discussing expansion. The insurance payout covered our losses, but we have capital for growth. We're thinking new tasting room, expanded tours, possibly a restaurant." "Agritourism," Elena added. "Vineyard experiences, educational programs, premium tastings with—" She nodded at Merlot. "Expert guidance." "I do give excellent tours," Merlot agreed from his perch on the armrest. "Very informative, highly rated on social media." "We'd also like to expand the organic certification program," Richard continued. "Partner with other small vineyards, share knowledge, resources. Create a cooperative that can compete with larger operations." "That's ambitious," Dom said, "especially with you reducing hours." "That's why we need you to." Richard looked at his sons. "I'm not asking you to maintain what we built. I'm asking you to grow it. Make it bigger, better, stronger than I ever could." "No pressure," Pete muttered, but he was smiling. "I want to help," Magrita said. "The consultancy. I can offer vineyard security assessments, supply chain verification, help other small operations avoid what happened to you." "We hoped you'd say that." Elena pulled out more papers. "We're calling it the Steel Protection Initiative. Small vineyard cooperative with built-in fraud prevention and insurance advocacy." "We'd need someone to run the security side," Richard said, looking at Magrita. "Someone with investigative experience, wine industry knowledge, and a track record of catching saboteurs." "You're offering me a job?" "We're offering you a partnership," Elena corrected. "Part of the family business, if you want it." Magrita looked at Dom, at Pete, at Richard and Elena, at Merlot, who was nodding encouragement. "Yes," she said. "Absolutely yes." They talked through the evening, plans and possibilities and dreams. Merlot provided wine pairings and commentary. Pete took notes. Dom's hand never left Magrita's. This was what she'd nearly lost, what she'd fought for, what she'd chosen when she told the truth. Around 9, Pete yawned dramatically. I'm heading to bed. Long day of nearly dying and family reconciliation. He stood, stretched. Night, Mag. Night, Pete. He paused at the doorway. Also, welcome to the family, Marga. He stumbled over the pronunciation. Wait, how do you say it again? Magrita, Magrita said, fighting a smile. Like Margaret with a typo. Right. McGarry. He tried again. Failed again. You know what? I'm just going to call you Mag like Dom does. Way easier. Sounds good. Though for the record, he grinned, Margarita is way more fun to say. We could get you a salt-rimmed glass, some tiny umbrellas. Pete, Elena warned. Going! He disappeared up the stairs, laughing. That boy, Elena sighed. But she was smiling. At least he tried. Later, much later, after Richard and Elena had gone to bed and Pete's snoring could be heard from upstairs, Dom pulled Magrita outside to the patio. Their spot now, the place overlooking the vineyard where they'd had their first real conversation. Stars brilliant overhead, the vines rustling in evening breeze, the scent of earth and fruit and home. Today was... Dom stopped. I don't even have words. Terrifying, exhausting, chaotic. Perfect, he finished. Perfectly us. She leaned against him, his arm coming around her shoulders. The mate bond hummed contentment. Your father's okay, she said softly. Your family's going to be okay. Our family. Thanks to you. If you hadn't exposed Riverside, if the stress of that contamination had continued, his arm tightened. I just did my job. You did more than that, Mag. He turned her to face him. You saved my family business. Our future. You almost died doing it. His hands cupped her face. I don't know how to thank you for that. You already did. You forgave me. Your family forgave me. That's... Her throat closed. That's everything. I have something else. He pulled a small box from his pocket. Opened it. A ring. Simple band, small diamond. Beautiful. Oh, Magrita breathed. I know we're already mated. I know the bond is permanent and forever. He smiled. But I want to do this right. Want to ask properly. Want you to have the choice. Dom. Magrita Voss. Disaster investigator, train wrecker. Woman who crashed into my life and destroyed everything in the best possible way. His voice was rough with emotion. Will you marry me? Yes. The word came without hesitation. Obviously yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring on her finger, kissed her deeply. The mate bond sang triumph. From inside the house, a crash. Then Pete's voice. They're engaged! Were you watching? Dom called. The window's right there. I'm not blind. Pete's face appeared. Also, Mom wants to know if we're doing spring or fall wedding because she needs to start planning. We literally just got engaged 30 seconds ago. And she's already got a binder. Welcome to the family, Mag. He disappeared back inside, then reappeared. Also, I'm still going to accidentally call you Margarita. Just warning you now. Noted, Magrita called back, laughing. Later, they fell into bed still dressed, wrapped around each other. The mate bond settled, content. Her wolf dozed. His wolf rumbled approval. I love you, she murmured against his chest. I love you too. He kissed her hair. My beautiful disaster. Your fiancé disaster. Even better. She fell asleep like that. Safe, warm, home. The ring on her finger catching moonlight. Dom's heartbeat steady under her ear. The vineyard spreading outside the window, vines heavy with promise. Tomorrow she'd move her things in. Start planning a wedding. Begin building the cooperative. Figure out how to balance her consultancy with the vineyard partnership. Tomorrow she'd call Bernard about unbanning her from the railway. Maybe even commission a model train as a wedding gift for Elena. Tomorrow she'd start her new life as part of this family, this business, this beautiful, chaotic home. But tonight she just held her mate and let herself be happy. A note from Merlot's journal. I'm detecting notes of earned happiness with undertones of chaotic joy and a finish of absolutely perfect home. Also, I'd like to note that the 2025 vintage is developing magnificently. The volcanic soil continues to exceed expectations. And the family that nearly destroyed themselves arguing over my tasting notes is now insufferably happy. It's disgusting. I love it. Merlot Beauregard Pinot Rothschild III, Head Sommelier, Steele Estate Vineyards, Level 3, Certified, WSET Diploma with Distinction, Occasional Investigative Partner, and Rescued Kit who found his family. And that's how you wreck a train and win a mate. Thank you for listening to Magrita, Dom, and Merlot's chaotic journey from steam train disaster to fated love. If you enjoyed this story, hit that like button, share it with your romance-loving friends, and drop a comment below. Your engagement keeps these stories coming. Now, before you go, don't forget your bonus chapter. Steam, wine, and happy endings. Join the entire found family on a vintage railway adventure through vineyard country where trains and wine and possums with opinions collide in the best possible way. It's hilarious. It's heartwarming. It's the kind of bonus chapter that makes you laugh out loud and leaves you feeling absolutely delighted. And it's completely free. Here's how to get it. Subscribe to the Course of Roses collection. When you subscribe, you'll get this bonus chapter plus all future bonus content, every new story released in one convenient place, and you'll never miss a release again. Everything you love, all in one spot. The link is in the description below and pinned in the first comment. Now it's your turn to join the conversation. Drop a comment and tell me, what was your favorite moment from the story? And what disaster romance should I write next? I read every single comment you write. Your idea could become the next story. This has been How to Wreck a Train and Win a Mate. Written by D.N. Leo. Narrated by Jessica Lee. Until next time, may your disasters lead to happily ever afters, your wine be perfectly aged, and your possums be only moderately judgmental.